Welcome to Garblag Games. This is Dark Heresy First Edition, and we are returning on the edge of the Emperor's Light. So, welcome back to episode 3 of On the Emperor's Light. I'm Lawrence, your Games Master, and in a moment we'll go around and everyone will introduce themselves. However, before we do, as always, just a reminder that Garblag Games is available in many, many places, so please go and have a look. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, obviously, if you're already watching us, there are the podcasts available, and if you're listening, please go and watch YouTube to see the madness that occurs whenever we get together. Pete's also asked me to remind everyone that we have the Patreon, which has some interesting new things on it all the time. And, of course, Pete has been very, very busy in the last week or so and has created his own rule set, Grimdark. As you do. Which
it's very grim.
I'm a bit dark.
Which is currently available. Parts, I think, are available on the Patreon at the moment, and will be generally available on RPG Day on the 12th of June. And of course, there's Redbubble as well if you're interested. And of course, our standard tags to our very, very good friends, the Thornless Rose, whose Kickstarter is now live.
His Kickstarter is live and over 10,000 at the point of
it's
doing really well.
It's mad.
So, well, good luck to them, and hopefully it keeps going really well. And of course, a little plug to our friendly musical maestro in the studio. Please go and have a look.
Oh, you're pointing at me. I wonder
Yeah.
Pointing at the good Lord himself.
The viewers at home.
Yeah. Please go and have a look. You've got some... I've had a look at some of your musical stuff. It's really, really interesting stuff on there. So please go and have a look at that as well. So, without further ado, starting on my left...
I need to stop sitting here.
It's too late. You've chosen your place now.
Hello there. I'm John. I'm playing Gith Gadarian, who is an Imperial Guardsman.
I'm Mark. I'm playing Bug, who is a tech priest.
I don't like this bit.
Because you're
Hi,
scum.
I'm Sam. I'm playing Galva, and my class is Scum.
Hi, I'm Roger. I'm playing Lex Fortis, and I'm playing an arbitrator.
Hi, I'm Liam, and I'm playing Gaius the Priest.
So, last time we left our valiant band of inquisitorial agents
And me.
deep in the depths of the Imperial Hive in what was once quite a fine square, just as on the steps of the slightly destroyed church, an priest starts to sing out an imperial hymn. His voice echoing. It's a very, very fine, deep voice, and sort of gently echoing around the square. And as he sings, you can see this sort of movement of people towards this destroyed or this very heavily damaged church. And you can see that more and more people are sort of coming from the surrounding streets and are moving towards. It's quite a stream of people heading towards it. And you can see that this is seems to be all classes of the local area. You've got some quite relatively well-dressed sort of local merchants in amongst the sort of workers in their work kit and their sort of boiler suits, and you see quite a few sort of quite ragged people sort of come out of various small streets and roads, and they seem to be particularly welcomed. At the doors there's a pair of either lesser priests or sort of church wardens of some description who move out, and they seem to be helping the frailer or the more ragged members of the crowd into the church, and they seem to be very welcoming to them. Whereas the sort of the better dressed and the healthier seem to be sort of just left to enter as they will. And this voice is it's quite an attractive voice. It sort of catches everyone's attention, and this hymn lasts about 2-3 minutes, and it's just his voice. No one joins him, and as he comes to a close, you can hear the sound of a bell ringing somewhere inside the building. Now, Bug, you were looking at, before we left, the great...
Tracing the source of...
Trying to trace the source of this field that protects this statue in the centre of the thing. So you were having a look with your Auspex, I think.
Yes.
So do you want to have a look and see if you can locate where that is coming from?
Am I rolling for intelligence?
Yeah, it's a tech use test. It's simple enough. It's quite a powerful field, so plus 20 to your tech use.
Okay. Plus 20 to my tech use, on top of, because I've already got plus 10, so 30. Oh, nice. Yeah, easy.
Do it.
Easy peasy.
Fair enough. It's fairly obvious to trace the source back. There's a gargoyle of some description on the outer building of what looks to be this temple to the Omnissiah.
Okay.
And you can trace back the energy. It seems to be being projected from the mouth of this gargoyle on the edge of the temple.
Okay.
And it's quite a powerful protective field. It's the sort of thing that you can, where you've seen them before, is the same as the sort of emergency seals if on the Void Station where you grew up. It's the same sort of thing as the emergency seals in case areas depressurize.
Okay, so like a force field type.
Yeah, it
thing.
might not protect against bullets or las rounds, but it seems to be a sort of atmospheric seal.
So will it prevent a person from penetrating?
Probably not.
Okay.
You could probably walk. You could probably sort of walk through it. It might not be very comfortable. It might be quite painful. It might do you some damage, but you would probably be able to move through it. It just might not be a good idea.
Mm.
And as it's protecting just the statue.
Oh, it's only protecting
only
the statue. Oh, I see.
So it's on a column that's sort of 8-10 foot up.
So I can access the building on which this gargoyle is mounted.
You can see there's quite a big sort of round cog-shaped, almost looks like an airlock portal.
Oh, I see.
On the front of it.
Okay.
So.
And this is is this a tech priest?
This is a temple to the machine god. This is your faith, your people.
It's your jam.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't even know. Okay. Well, I'm going to go and investigate this airlock door then and see if there's any way that I can determine if it can be...
If you can get in.
Accessed anyway, yeah.
Fair enough.
Can I just see if anyone's, available to kind of join me as a bit of backup, just because I don't know what I'm going to encounter in this environment. They've got this protective field, so I'm slightly on my guard.
Where is everyone in terms of...
I think we're all stood around.
You've sort of come in, and I think you sort of grouped in front of this sort of statue. It sort of caught everyone's attention. Mm-hmm. So you're close enough that, and of course you do have your earpieces, you do have microbeads, so you can contact each other.
Okay. Well, I'll just go check it out then, and I'll if necessary I'll call for backup at the time. Then.
Fair enough.
I will look at my name's right, Griff, and go. I'll go with him.
Okay.
You keep an eye on the others.
I will do.
Join in the chant, the prayer.
You
join
can hear
the crowd and join him.
You can
add my voice to it.
He's sort of finished, but you can hear the sound of the beginnings of prayers starting inside the building, and he's sort of looking around. The square's quite empty now, and there's a few sort of traders are still there. There's a few people moving about, but obviously it was quite busy when you came in, and it's people waiting for this service to start. And he looks over and he sort of catches his attention, because obviously you are that much. Certainly some of you are much better equipped than the average local, and
we haven't gone in yet.
Yeah, and you're all obviously you stand out a little bit from the locals just because so many of you aren't from this world. You're off-worlders.
It's a local church for local people.
You stand out to a certain extent. I mean, this world has fairly dark features, so our blonde, purple-eyed sort of guardsman is quite an unusual sight, especially as you're probably standing a good head taller than most of the people around you.
Indeed.
And he looks back into the church and sort of turns and starts to move towards you. At this point, you've obviously wandered away. You're quite obviously heading to the temple, and he doesn't seem that interested in you, but you are quite obviously robed in... His church is directly opposite a shrine to the machine god. He's probably encountered your kind quite often and worked out that there isn't a lot that he can... There isn't a huge amount that's going to happen there, so...
Okay. All right.
So, you approach the machine temple as he sort of walks across the open square. And when you get in front of the door, you feel a sort of... You can feel something like another electrical or power field in front of the door. And from the door, there's a squirt of sound, which you recognise. To everyone else, sounds like squealing and pinging.
Binary chatter.
But to you, is perfectly understandable. It is a simple request to state who you are and what your business is.
Okay. Well, I'm going to respond and say that I'm a visitor to this world, and I want to be among my my machine god loving kin. I come to worship and pay homage and all that old stuff.
Fair enough. The door, you feel a sort of, there's a crackle and you feel the power field sort of drop. And this door starts to roll, and it is a giant, it's a giant cogwheel. And as it sort of rolls aside within the frame. And another sort of, there's another short burst of sound, which basically goes, enter brother and make yourself known.
Okay.
Are you still...
I'm just going to be looking at him because I have no idea what's going on.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Insert modem noises here.
Basically, yes, you sound like 56k modem.
Yeah. Can I just make a request that my colleague be allowed to join me?
You can make the request, and the door basically stays open. No sound comes back, but the door doesn't close. It sits there, and you can smell sort of as it wafts out. It's a very strong smell of incense, sort of wafting out of this portal. It's quite for you. It's quite homely.
Mm-hmm.
For Lex, it's quite strong,
annoying.
It has. You remember similar sort of things, but this has a tang of oil to it that you're not familiar with.
Okay, I'm unsure whether you should come in with me because we didn't get an okay. So I'm unsure whether
this is your domain.
I think
I will
in
come
the
with you
in the
if you
absence
want me
of
to.
permission, I think I'm going to be respectful and assume that the answer was no. So I'm going to just step inside alone and just have you on standby if I can communicate with you from within.
Very well. I'll turn around and I'll just walk back to the others.
Sorry, a bit of a snub, I know.
The machine, the Mechanicus are not necessarily known for their
welcomeness to outsiders,
or their understanding of normal human emotion anymore. In a lot of cases, a lot of them have gone quite a long way from that understanding anymore. So, as you walk back over, this sort of preacher has approached you.
Greetings, brother. May the Emperor's light be with you.
Greetings to you, brother. And may the Emperor shine on you also.
We have come a long distance on our pilgrimage to reach the Church of the Emperor's Suffering. I've heard great tales of this place and read many books. It is truly an honour to be here.
Nice.
I am gratified that strangers and our story has carried so far. May I invite you all inside so that you may join us for the worship of the God Emperor? Please, follow me. It is always nice to see new faces. We do not fear strangers here. We see them as seekers of the Emperor's true light. Please, come within. And sort of gestures and sort of turns and starts to walk back.
He's going to get a bit of a raised eyebrow, probably to his back, and then a casual kind of shrug and walk in.
Bob trying to look stony faced. The Emperor's true light as a phrase is a bit of an odd one, isn't it? From my common law ecclesiarchy. Because normally someone would say the Emperor's light.
It is a little bit unusual, but it is something that... It is not something that is
quite
unknown.
A few different creeds.
There are many different versions of the worship of the
It's a bit
Emperor.
weird to the one I've been taught.
You've probably been taught the higher sort
Probably
of
like Terran.
possibly Terran or
creed.
possibly regional. This is undoubtedly
Shout
a very...
heresy. Shoot him in the back of the head. You said it wrong, heretic!
Ah,
You damned yourself!
boom.
Game over.
Well, that was easy. Moving on.
From
And just
looking
hurl a
at
demolition
his,
bolt.
his clothes, is there anything? Can I tell that his rank, or is he an official, or is he just a?
There's
member
nothing...
Of the flock?
Frita.
There is nothing... He's not wearing any of the symbols you've seen of the local... When you're at the
He's
cathedral,
not a
you can
member
see...
of the ecclesiarchy.
The only symbol thing he seems to have is a chain with an aquila on it.
Okay.
And it does seem to be sort of a fairly standard imperial ecclesiarchy one, something that you would expect to see on a preacher. But apart from that, his robes are very, very basic. They're the same material as sort of the local clothing, but they're dyed this sort of very, very deep blue, which is... It's a stronger colour than sort of a lot of the workwear, but that could just simply be because the workwear has been worn for possibly generations and has worn out and been patched and
I'm
repaired.
going to sub-vocalise to the scum and say, when we get in there, disappear and go and do recon for the church. See what you can find out. Because it's a big building, isn't it?
It's a big... It is quite a large building, yeah. It's most of one side of this square, so... This was obviously an important, large church. It's nowhere near the size of the Grand Cathedral higher up, or even sort of other churches that you may have visited on other worlds. But it's certainly, compared to the other buildings around here, it's large. And the fact that it's open to the open to the dome, as you're sort of still in an enclosed space technically. It's still open to the elements.
Well, that negates the whole, leaky church roof problem, doesn't it?
Well, you do get this place is big enough. You get cloud formation, so it does occasionally
I
rain.
remember you saying there was occasionally, accidentally acid rain, but
Or occasionally they accidentally vent the sluices the wrong way,
Yeah.
and you get downpours.
Slump
lovely,
waterfall.
Yeah.
lovely.
So yes, when we get inside, sneak off and do some recon.
Yeah, whatever.
Cool.
You walk in, you sort of enter this carved stone, and you can see that the quality was once there. It's now dirty, damaged. But as you enter, you can see this sort of enter under sort of a central dome, and there's big wings pass out, and the place is full. There's no seats, there's no pews. This is just an open space. And the only real sort of thing that you can see is there is a pulpit sort of against the far wall directly opposite the doors, which is it's a carved wooden, it's very, very typically imperial pulpit, but it's obviously been fire damaged. This thing's sort of scorched and you can see it's blackened and it hasn't really been repaired, it's just been left. It might have been cleaned, but it hasn't been repaired. You can see where sort of friezes of images have sort of just end in blackened wood. And beyond that, this is just an open space, sort of that must be about 2/3 of the building. You can see sort of walls at either end that have doors in them, but apart from that, it's a huge open to the roof. So this is 2 stories high.
Mhm.
And apart from that, the only other real decoration is there's this hanging censer, and it is huge. It's the size of a small chandelier, hangs from the ceiling on this sort of from the dome, what remains of the dome, in this sort of great, huge, thick chain. And apart from that, you can just see on the floor, which is quite impressively all polished wood. It's all scuffed and scratched, but you can see it has been inlaid. As you walk in, you can see what look to be talons inlaid into the floor, which suggests that the entire floor has been inlaid with a symbol of the Aquila,
Cool.
covering the floor.
So if it's 2 stories tall,
Hmm.
is there another floor? Or
You
it's
can't
just
you
that
can't see it.
kind
Just
of-
goes all the way up, and then the dome is almost another story on
Okay.
top. It is a huge space,
Mhm.
open space. The end walls obviously don't go to the ends of the building, so
Yeah.
that suggests there may be rooms. Possibly there are multiple floors in the ends, but the central space has always been this huge cavernous open space, which doesn't feel quite so much when the entirety
It's
of
full
one
of
wing.
everyone.
Well, also the entirety of one wing is, you can see, is burnt rafters or what remains of them, and a little bit of stone vaulting. And apart from that, half of the roof is gone.
Do we know how long ago that was? Did that come up?
I don't believe anyone's asked anyone that yet,
Okay.
but it certainly looks. It doesn't look recent,
Mm.
and the inside is clean,
Yeah.
completely clean, and the walls have been sort of whitewashed. Although you can see sort of damaged where there is wood on the walls, you can see a lot of it's damaged. You can also see almost like slightly melted stone. So this was obviously an incredible fire
Mm.
that's destroyed this. It's actually affected the fabric of the building. And as you enter, the entire congregation are singing a standard sort of imperial hymn, one that you pretty much all recognise. This is one that is probably taught to you in your childhood. It's a very simple one, but there are hundreds of people in this building. Possibly, you might even be getting on to 1,000 people crammed into this building. And all of them are singing their hearts out. And it's echoing around it's a very uplifting feeling to you. You sort of, you do almost get a sort of warm, just the sound of the voices washing over you is almost, you can almost feel it as it sort of, you walk in. And he sort of the preacher nods to you and sort of moves through the crowd, and you can see sort of people getting out of his way as he moves towards this pulpit at the front.
Well, we'll probably just stay and listen to him, won't we? Because while she goes and sneaks.
Yeah, well, as I walk in, just reflexively, I'm going to make the sign of the Aquila.
Fair enough. Bug, as you enter, you hear sort of this voice, and as you walk in, and sort of just as that happens, the door starts to roll closed. You can hear this sort of quite melodious voice talking in the square. As the door sort of closes, it's quite quiet inside, but you can hear the sort of hum of power generators. And you're in this fairly large, sort of completely steel, brushed, polished steel box, effectively, lit by glowing... They're actually green, sort of glowing lights, all suspended in rows from the ceiling. And as you stand there, a skull sort of hovers down from the ceiling.
Man, not these again.
You love service guys.
And sort of appear and just hangs in front of you. And there's a brief sort of blurt of binary that basically is the equivalent of "please follow me," and it spins and sort of starts to hover away across the room.
I know what these things are capable of, so I will comply.
I'm not going to mess
Towards it's not huge. It's not a huge room, but it's still probably 50, 60 metres square.
Okay.
And as you pass sort of across it, there's no real sound but the echo of your feet on the metal and the hum of electrics. And as you get close, there's this, again, a sort of cog-shaped door that sort of rolls open as you approach.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of from inside steps a robed figure, all robed in white with red detailing. This is all detailing you recognise. It suggests that the person who's sort of stepped through is a tech priest.
Mm-hmm.
But the patterns seem to suggest that this one is a specialist in biological manipulation.
Lovely.
He's
What kind of manipulation?
he is a low-level Magos biologist.
Okay.
And you can't see much of him. He's robed. His sort of hands are tucked in his sleeves in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see his sort of head, which is about 2/3 sort of polished brass, with both eyes have obviously been replaced with sort of multiple lenses extending out with all different sizes and colours and prisms in front that sort of seem to be sort of flicking themselves up and down as you move, he moves towards you. Seems to be just automatically trying to calibrate with all these little lenses flicking up and down in front of his eyes.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
And as he approaches to you and sort of bows to you and goes, and not in binary but in standard low Gothic, goes, "Welcome, brother. Please come within. The chapel is ready for you, should you wish to make your obeisance to the Omnisire. I am Magos Oracle."
I will return his greeting, and is he now going back into the chamber?
No, he sort of stood up. He sort of stood there, sort of just opposite you, and sort of there's a mechendrite comes over his shoulder, and he sort of gestures with it like it's like a hand.
Yeah. While
his own arms don't really move, and you can see sort of as he was moving, it's obvious that he hasn't necessarily got legs. It was quite a smooth movement.
Okay.
As he comes towards you.
Shake Mechandrites.
I was just going to say, can we shake I don't know if that's a thing.
You can extend your Mechandrite.
Secret handshake.
Maybe. I'll just accept his invitation to enter the chamber and follow his.
He sort of, as he goes, "Please follow me," and sort of you can hear a sort of buzzing sound as he moves off through the door. And it's also quite interesting that obviously this is a round door, so you've got a frame for the door, and he sort of passes straight over it. He doesn't go up, he doesn't go down. He just sort of passes straight over at exactly the same height and doesn't seem to step up
He's
and over.
hovering. Okay. Well, I will step through.
Yep. The door remains open at this point.
Okay.
And you enter into a chamber that has... It's a large vaulted chamber, and on the far wall is a large symbol, a large cogwheel symbol with a skull. It's a standard symbol of the Mechanicus.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of hangs from the wall.
Okay.
And it's a fairly open space. Again, there aren't seats or anything, but around the walls are plinths, perfectly spaced.
Mm-hmm.
You're very aware that these are spaced perfectly to some sort of sacred ratio of numbers. And on them there seem to be old pieces of technology some in glass cases, some in power fields. And there's this very strong calming scent of incense and oil about the place. that
Okay.
makes you feel very at home. This doesn't feel all that dissimilar to where you have prayed before,
Okay.
when you in other shrines.
I will bow to the sign of the Mechanicus to show respect, and then can I, from these other objects that are surrounded by similar kinds of protective fields, can I determine if there's a source for those?
They seem to be coming through the plinths. They are
Through the plinths themselves.
Yeah, they seem to be the equivalent of objects in museum cases. It's
Okay.
just some of them are in power fields.
So do any of these stand out as particularly significant to me? Any of these?
There are pieces that look, you sort of recognise odd suggestions of what they might be, but some of them are so ancient and so corroded and so damaged, they could be scrap metal, to be perfectly honest. But
And yet they're protected.
But the fact that they're protected suggests they are very important in some way.
Okay, so can I is Magos Oracle still here with me? Can I?
He has sort of buzzed his way over,
Okay.
and he stood sort of in front of the icon of the Mechanicus. He's sort of just quietly stood there, and you can hear, and you pick up on a sort of binaric chant,
Mhm.
and it's almost like plain song in numbers, as he's just quietly singing away to himself in honour of the Mechanicus, basically.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to interrupt you at this point. Can I just go and investigate one of these plinths,
Yeah,
one of the more highly protected ones, and just see if I can
recognise what's in there.
determine something that might be?
Fair enough. As
Because
you
I'm
walk,
quite intrigued by this.
there's one that seems to be you kind of get the feeling the shapes catch your eye,
Mhm.
the shape of the object, and it's about halfway down one of the walls.
Okay.
You can sort of walk over to that, and as you get closer, you can hear the sort of hum of the power field,
Mhm.
and there's a sort of you feel static over sort of some of the metal parts of your body. Some of your own enigmatics seem to be sort of, you can feel the buzz in them, and you can feel the sort of crackle of static over them.
Mhm.
It's quite refreshing.
Okay.
As you approach, we'll go back into the church, and the chant ends as the hymn ends as the priest climbs up onto the pulpit, and there's this hush across this room. It's too quiet for a room that's got hundreds of people in it. It's that sort of, people are almost not breathing loudly. It's a very, I mean, you'll have been in, some of you might have been in troop ships or transit in large spaces and things like that, where you just get lots of people, and just the sound of lots of people, even if they're being quiet, the sound of hundreds of people sleeping, for instance, is actually quite a loud noise. This is that reverential hush. And he steps out and he starts to speak. And he starts to speak, and it's High Gothic. It's the...
Oh, I speak some High Gothic. I know the basis.
You know the basics.
I speak High Gothic.
You speak High Gothic. You don't.
I am
You might
trained in
notice some words if they're ecclesiarchy related.
You'll recognise elements and
Imperium.
phrases.
I am trained in High Gothic.
Emperor.
You certainly
Imperator.
understand him, and he starts to no. You might recognise. You'll recognise
Here,
what
you
he's.
stack off.
I'm around.
And I
in the
recognise
building somewhere.
Imperator.
You recognise elements of the words from the past, but you have
Terror.
don't necessarily know what they mean. You'll recognise a few bits, but
It's fine if it's important. The others might tell me.
yeah, and certainly he starts to talk. Those of you who understand, he
I'm going to
starts.
be paying a lot of attention because I'm trying to listen to things that might be wrong.
He's talking about. He's welcoming people into the light of the Emperor. He's talking about helping those around, bringing the light of the Emperor out into the community so that all can gain the benefit of his protection and his brilliance. That's a particular word he uses quite a lot. It's the brilliance of the Emperor's light and the way it illuminates and gives bringing it to people.
Can I, while he's listening to the speech, can I watch the crowd and look for any shady goings on?
Yeah, sure. You can
Shady's going on!
Keep an eye on the crowd.
Oh, I roll.
That's a
this is the wrong
D20.
dice. I'm
Yeah.
not playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm playing this game.
Too many systems. Too
Too
short
many
a time.
systems. That's better. 33. I failed by 1.
Failed by 1.
My perception's 32.
You do not see me.
No. You've certainly lost track of Galva in the crowd. You don't notice anything in particular, but there's definitely a focus on this. There doesn't seem to be any whispering amongst the crowd. There isn't any sort of.
So the majority of pretty much everyone here gathered is
concentrating
on that
on this
guy.
man, and nothing seems to stand out. It's not quite rapturous, but certainly you've never felt. You've been in big sort of parades and sort of church parade equivalents, and you've got hundreds of soldiers who have been told to pay attention to this man. And you've never felt anything quite as...
Don't good as job of it as these guys.
Is it almost unnerving?
It's a little bit unnerving, but it's also quite... There is something quite uplifting about seeing so many people sort of actively attracted to worship of the Emperor, especially in a place where often you don't get priests, and people sort of make do for themselves if they're interested, and a lot of people pay lip service but don't really believe, but you can feel the belief in these people, and you get a sort of warm, especially you get a real warm feeling from this crowd. It's a feeling you've had a few times before, but it's only ever been in sort of very specific scenarios. It's quite strange to feel it just in this quiet space with this voice sort of gently echoing around the room. And he speaks for about 5-6 minutes, and as he sort of comes to an end, and as he's standing there, he comes sort of quiet, hush falls, and he just goes, and in low Gothic he then goes, "In the name of the Emperor, let us sing." He makes the sign of the Aquila across his chest. Ave Imperator. And
Ave Imperator.
the entire crowd echoes him. And you hear the sort of bells start to ring. And there seems to be you see where it is now. It's built into the wall at one end. This sort of quite sonorous bell starts to toll. And he starts to sing. And as he's singing, sort of the crowd joins in. And you get this thing again, this sort of powerful song echoing around this building. But you can always hear his voice. His voice seems to cut through everyone else. You can always hear the sound of his voice. So it's like a bass note to the music.
Getting in full pelt.
You're
Getting
going.
in the action.
What's Ave Imperator sounds? Ave Imperator.
So all of these losers are paying so much attention to this guy. It's a shame none of them have
I love
any worth
religion.
stealing.
I love religion.
I'm guessing you're sort of gently moving.
Yes, totally joining in. Miming badly.
Stealing things.
Moving amongst the crowd.
Not that badly. Wait. Not that badly.
Okay. Are you sort of found somewhere to stay, or are you moving?
I would try and get probably to the edges.
Like
rather
one
than
end
in
of the
middle
building.
of the crowd. So yeah, try and find like more of either a nook or a
Annie.
space.
There are
around
niches.
where I can see pretty much everything.
There are niches in the wall where obviously once had. Some of them still have statues in them. Obviously, there are some that have got just plinths remaining. Some of them have got, in some cases, just broken legs.
Probably disrespectful to climb in one of those.
Go and pretend to be a statue.
Yeah, I know, right?
There are people who are sort of stood on some of the
Trying to get a
where
better
there are
view.
plinths, looking to see over the crowd to be able
Okay.
to see.
Okay.
So it does seem to be an accepted
Okay.
thing to do.
Yeah, so I just want to try and find basically kind of if it's how like rammed is it? Is it pretty kind of sardines or is it kind of?
If you're staying near the edges,
Mm.
you can move, but it's not going to be easy. So
Well, I don't want to move quickly because that would
no,
draw
just
attention.
the slow movement.
Yeah.
If you give me an agility test at plus 30, just to see if you
Yep.
sort of to catch anyone's attention.
Nope. 96.
Oh, well,
I shoved someone.
as you try in a really way, but you come to a knot of people that are quite tightly packed,
Uh-huh.
and as you try and move around them, you do sort of elbow someone in the ribs, and this sort of person sort of turns and looks at you, and it's quite a sort of piercing, quite angry look. As you make the sign of the Aquila, it sort of softens slightly, and his sort of attention sort of drawn back, and you sort of move past them, and they seem to be
Agility
sort
be
of
damned.
seems to be sort of focused on the preacher as he's speaking.
Cool.
Right. We'll go back across from one form of worship to another, and back to the
Bug.
back to Bug in the
Beep, boop, beep.
in the chapel of the Omnissiah.
Mm.
You approach this. It's not a particularly big plinth. They're all about maybe a foot square on the top.
Okay.
Fairly simple machined steel, but they've all been inlaid in patterns, different patterns. With you can see silver, you can see bronze, you can see in some cases gold, you can see. Some of them are even pewter, or in some cases, actually, wood has been inlaid into these as well. All different materials, all different patterns. But this one happens to be platinum,
Ooh.
worked in cogwheel shapes, which is quite impressive on a circular plinth.
Yeah. Do I recognise any of the patterns?
The
Is
patterns
it of any
are-
significance?
They're patterns that you remember from your time training.
Okay.
They're patterns designed for tech priests, so to focus the mind on study.
Okay.
Like a magic eye. Stare at it. And...
It's a dinosaur.
They're sort of almost like meditation aids.
Okay, so I'm going to assume that these things are considered holy then, whatever.
Oh
they are.
yes.
So this one with inlaid in platinum and whatnot, and wood. That's intriguing as well.
That's relatively unusual,
Yeah.
especially for a world like this.
So, am I any closer to determining
What's in it?
Yeah.
The field's a bit fizzly, and it's a little bit. It's not clear what you
Okay.
can see through, but inside there is this. It's an off shape, sort of rectangular box.
Okay.
Seems
It's
to
not
be
like a bomb, is it?
it's like a metal box with it does seem to have power, almost like cut off cables.
Okay.
So it looks like someone has literally gone
Like severed it and
taken it away from wherever it fitted.
Mm.
But on the lid, sort of on the top of it, is the same symbol that's on the wall, the symbol of the Mechanicus.
So it's our gear.
And you can see there's also quite a lot of wax and parchment seals sort of attached to it in various places around the box. The only thing that's really stands out as this could be almost any sort of electrical box. It seems to be was electrically powered. The only thing that stands out is it has a series of lights, sort of, and they appear to be like almost like glass bulb valve lights that are all different coloured glass that are built into part of the box.
Okay.
And you can see even through the field, they are still glowing. They are still giving light, even though this thing is quite obviously disconnected.
Mm. So would I be correct in inferring that this is ancient tech?
This is, you
Employing
certainly don't,
valves?
it looks similar to things you've seen before in power systems, but this doesn't look. This looks old. I mean, if you've got anything to do with old technology, any knowledge of old technology, you might be able to guess how old it is.
Archaeotech?
Oh, I do have Archaeotech.
Ah, there you go. This is
Roll
right up
on
your
that.
street. So yeah, if you want to test against that, see if you can work out
So
what
what's
it
that,
is.
an intelligence test?
Yeah.
92.
Oh.
Oh, unfortunately,
It's a box.
it's definitely
It's a box mystery
it is
solved.
definitely ancient.
Made yesterday.
It's quite possibly from the beginnings of this world,
Okay.
but you can't really get a clear look at it. This power field is very
Staticky?
it's very staticky, and it doesn't give you a clear view, so it's quite hard to tell.
Again?
You could
Scan it.
you could try using the Auspex if you want.
So that's an intelligence test again,
Yeah.
isn't it? And what do I get? Plus something for something?
Haha.
Yes.
I can't be more specific, I'm afraid.
Do I get something for something?
Oh no, I don't.
That's better.
Yes.
What do you get?
Yeah.
17.
17.
So I passed by 3.
You don't get much because the power field sort of overrides a lot of the senses of it. It sort of just picks up this. A lot of it is picked up this power field, but what you get suggests that this object is probably 12 millennia old.
Okay.
Wow.
So quite possibly from the very earliest where you are, possibly from an early period of colonisation of this world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Dark Age of Technology.
you're...
Age of Strife. It's before the Heresy.
Yes. So,
But I don't know that. Do
You'd-
I?
Yeah,
Would I-
well,
I would
you wouldn't
know
know
that
of
'cause
the
I've got-
Heresy probably, but
Okay.
you would know that that was before the Emperor kind of started unifying everyone.
yeah.
Okay.
This is from that
Pre-unification era.
yeah, the very end of humanity sort of separation.
Mm.
So this is very ancient.
Is
10,000 years
Magos still gazing upon the?
Yeah, he seems to be quite the chant certainly hasn't changed, and he seems to be quite fixed on this thing. So
I'm going to approach him, but I'm not going to.
interrupt.
I'm not going to interrupt him. I'm going to join him in reflecting on the sign of the Mechanicus,
Fair enough.
and just make my presence known
to him.
subtly to him.
Fair enough.
Maybe just wave my Mechndrite around a bit.
You approach him, and he sort of as you get closer, you can see him. He sort of drifts sideways, so he's not stood directly in front of it anymore. Sort of suggesting that you should join him in equal position in front of it.
Okay.
And he continues to sing this sort of chant, this binary chant, but it changes as you approach, and he's leaving. The sound of it suggests he's leaving it open for you to join in and for you to add in the bits that he was doing on his own. So there's definitely an invitation there.
Do I know this?
This is something you may not know exactly, but it's a fairly simple structure. It's
Okay.
certainly not something that you would have trouble following. It's nothing you're going to need to test against. It's something you just have to listen to it for a few seconds, and you get the rhythm of it, and you get the
Okay.
sound of it, and you're then able to join him if you wish.
Then I will.
Fair enough. You add your voice to the chorus, and the echo in this room sort of subtly changes, and you start to, as you're sort of standing there, you're looking at this icon. There's something that you can start to see. You start to see a green glow, a sort of generated green glow around the symbol of the Mechanicus.
Okay.
And as you look at that, we'll go back to the others.
Okay.
Should totally hack his brain.
Rude.
So this song is now swelling. A very different song on the opposite side of the square is swelling up, and you're sort of joining in.
Ish.
ish in some cases. Galva, you found the way onto a plinth, and you can see the others.
Mhm.
They're actually quite obvious because nearly all of them are taller than the locals. And actually, there's at this point, especially, there's quite a few of the locals, especially the more ragged lower end of the spectrum ones, have actually knelt down and are knelt on the floor singing along. So they're sort of groups at all different heights. Can you give me a perception check, please?
Oh no!
Minor straight one.
You missed the.
Yes, I can.
How
And I
many?
passed with a degree.
Pass with a degree.
Yep.
You, as you sort of stood there, sort of gently trying to follow along.
Yep. Helping.
You notice a sort of one of the points that's there's people kneeling down. They've sort of become sort of knelt down around in a circle, sort of all facing in each other. There's this little open area.
Rather than to him.
Yeah, they're all sort of. It almost looks like a. They're all praying together. It looks like a group. And this just means there's this little open space, and you can see part of what looks like maybe a wing feather of this
The
eagle,
pattern on the floor.
or the pattern on the floor.
Okay.
Just a little bit of it. But you notice there seems to be a sort of. You can see it sort of bowing and moving, and you can see, and actually, as that catches your eye, you can see that there's a gentle ripple. And there's sort of various people sort of just gently move as the floor seems to just gently ripple slightly.
I'm going to be fairly pleased that I'm stood up on a plinth and not on the floor right now. So that's weird.
Yeah, it definitely catches your attention. And it sort of, you can see this, you see it sort of ripple out from somewhere just off
So kind of
centre.
from where they are?
No, it's
or
sort of
just
off
kind of-
centre. It's just the fact that because there's open floor, you catch sight of the floor move and then you see the people. And there seems to be centred sort
Yeah,
of.
because just looking at a crowd, you wouldn't necessarily
Necessarily.
notice because crowds move.
Especially if they're all different heights. Some people are standing up from kneeling, some people are kneeling down. It's not obvious, but when you see it, you can see the ripple in the people. And there's this sort of... The song just dims slightly as people sort of look around, as a few people notice.
I'm just going to ping the group and be like,
Hi.
is floor still to you?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
The floor, is it moving?
Is the floor moving?
Yeah. Do we notice?
Perception checks at -10 for the rest of you.
Nope.
Oh, yes. 21. Passed by...
Some.
not quite.
No degrees because it's -10.
Fair enough. No?
Not quite.
No, I didn't pass
Just a
that.
few.
So you'll think I'm crazy, which is
Well,
not news.
you recognise that you do sort of go... You thought someone had jogged you, but you realise there's no one sort of standing
No one close enough.
In fact, actually, sort of, apart from... You've all noticed that if you're sort of... Wherever you're stood, the crowd has given you just a little bit more space than sort of they've given the other locals. A lot of people are sort of shoulder to shoulder, but there's definitely a sort of... Just a gentle gap around each of you, where people are just sort of...
Wary.
A little bit wary. You're newcomers, you're unknowns. There's a slightly bigger gap around you, but that seems to be more out of respect than the sort of wariness that these two are generating, especially considering you're openly carrying weaponry.
Oh yeah.
And dressed like a ganger.
Oh yeah.
But looking around, there are one or two other
Yeah.
similarly dressed. There are people who are dressed, and no one's... It's obvious that people
They
have sort
know
of
that-
glanced at you and gone,
Don't recognise that one.
don't recognise that one, but
It's
You're-
got a big knife.
your dress isn't... No one's looking uncomfortable with you being there. You're quite obviously joining in with the worship of the Emperor, and that sort of makes you part of them, and they're sort of happy to accept you on that sort of stage, even though they would possibly turn around and go the opposite way if they found you coming towards them on the street.
Cool. So the floor is moving.
Yeah. You do notice this, but it's sort of... The others have gone,
Galva's correct.
We should probably get off the floor then. I start walking towards the edge of the.
Don't rush.
Oh no, I'm casually pushing people aside,
Your movement sort of...
shouting, "Imperial Guard, make way!" No, I'm joking.
Your movement, as you sort of move, you sort of disrupt, and as you move, it sort of people are sort of start to look at you. But as you sort of move towards the edge of the building, sort of the wall, there is this crack of, it sounds like snapping wood.
Cool.
And in amongst the song, suddenly sort of just it falters and there's this discordant scream as from sort of near where you first saw it, you can see all of a sudden part of the floor has actually broken upwards. And another part sort of dropped down slightly. So it looks like something's almost like grabbed it and twisted and cracked it. And sort of a couple of people have sort of slid where they've been stood or kneeling around it. They've sort of slid into either into this gap or have ended up sort of caught on it.
So is there a lot of is it just like there's floor and then there's floor and it's just kind of a gap?
There is it's not a huge gap.
Or is
It's
it
probably
actually a hole?
no. It's probably 2 or 3 foot
Okay.
gap where at the worst point, and it's then sort of naturally tapers back into the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see that the crack has gone where people have moved away from it. You can see it's gone right across across the shoulder of the wing of the eagle, and it looks like someone's almost broken the wing off this image on the floor. Looks like someone, and it's sort of, you can see it's still, the floor is now actually quite obviously twisting and doing this.
Ugh.
And more people are trying to get out of the way now. There's sort of, the song has ended, and there's sort of screaming and the sound of
Where did you say that bell
voice.
was?
Far wall.
Can I look up at the pulpit and see what the reaction is or what he's doing?
He's sort of almost stunned, looking down. And as sort of people start screaming, he sort of quickly dashes down the stairs and sort of starts pushing his way through the crowd towards it.
Towards the hole?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm gonna shout everyone out.
I want to head towards the hole.
Intimidate.
Fair enough.
I'm not trying to scare them. I'm just trying to get them to not be somewhere dangerous.
You can, if you want to
So,
do that.
like a command, leadership
Yes.
type?
Come on.
Command.
No.
No, the noise level's too high.
I will fire my gun in the air and shout everyone out. And I'll use Intimidate.
Okay.
Yes, I rolled a 10. So 3 degrees of success.
Fair enough. You're carrying an
An
auto.
auto gun. Bam, bam, bam! Everyone out!
This literally echoes, the shots echo out, and in the sort of slight silence that follows, it's not completely silent, but there's the sound of creaking wood and the sound of sort of shocked silence, and your voice echoes out. And everyone who's near the doors starts to,
Leg it.
I wouldn't say run, but there's a definite push
Yeah.
out the door. Anyone who stood near the door, give me anyone stood near the door?
No,
I
I moved
guess
to the
we're
side.
we're kind of at the back.
You were at the back.
when we came in, but I don't.
If you stayed near the door when didn't move, well, you're trying to move through the crowd,
Yeah,
and I guess
Actually, no
I'm
idea.
accustomed to crowds.
do you want to be
You
near
said
the
you
door?
moved towards the thing, towards
yeah.
the hole in the floor, didn't you?
So you're pushing
yeah,
through
I
the crowd
probably
as
would've
well.
gone the other way.
I'm not near the door.
I'll vox you though.
I will suggest to anyone who is near me to not do as he says, because there's going to be a crush. But I won't tell anyone that's what they have to do, because that's not how I
I'll
roll.
vox you to keep an eye out for the priest as well, who's gone into the middle of it.
Fair enough. You'll hear that go across. You can see that people are sort of pushing to get out, but it isn't a panicked rush.
Ah.
People aren't getting trampled in this. This is sort of people packing together to get through a space, but there's a certain...
Decorum.
Yeah, there is still a certain
Well, this is
decorum.
awfully inconvenient.
It's an assertive shuffle.
Yeah, an assertive shuffle is actually quite a good
That's
description.
like the end of a gig.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's this sort of push, but it isn't. No one sort of, even the sort of, apart from you can hear sort of screaming near the thing, but the rest of it, there's a sort of quiet of people sort of slightly shocked, but not really sure what's going on. But they're just
Okay,
being-
we're going to do that then.
Yeah.
Looking a bit more shocked by the autogun fire than by the floor.
As I start to mow them
Certainly
down.
anyone who is near him is sort of... There's a few people who are sort of crouching
I usually
hands
keep
over
it to
ears
start
going...
with, and then they're just going, nope.
Because to a lot of these people, sort of loud noises are not unusual. They work in foundries, they work in heavy industry. But the sound of gunfire is relatively unusual even in this sort of area.
Cool.
If there's anyone that's visibly shaken on my way towards the hole, kind of.
Give them
The
a...
Emperor protects.
There are a few people who do sort of seem... who you get a few sort of reverential nods as you pass. And there are a few people who do... It does seem to have an active effect on a few people. They do sort of pick themselves up and sort of move away without... where they before were almost cowering on the floor.
Right, we'll start to move towards the...
You're heading
a
towards
lot
it.
of people have gone, we'll start to head towards the crack.
Yeah, you probably...
The crack of
About a
doom.
third of the people have managed to get out by this point. It's been 30, 40 seconds. And as you start to push your way through the thinning crowd, there is another massive crack, and part of the floor punches up and flies up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a big section of the floor. It's about 20 foot across.
Wow, okay.
Section of floor has just punched up, and you can see on it, it's one of the heads of the Aquila has just gone flying, and it is literally flying at about first story height
Oh, wow.
through the air across the space towards one of the walls, and as it flies, we see back to the
Gunshots. How goes your hearing?
you're singing, and all of a sudden, and there's this sort of weird glow, and you're sure that the glow only you can. It's a glow that you are seeing, but you're sort of seeing it within your own optics.
Okay, so it's not actually visible light.
It's not an actual visible light, but it's possibly an invisible light that only you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And as you join in, and it sort of starts to resolve into cogwheels and shapes around this central thing. And you recognise the pattern. Some of them match some of the ones on the pillars.
Mm.
And it has this sort of relaxing and quite uplifting feel for you. And then all of a sudden,
And then Gavra asks you if the floor is moving.
and all of a sudden, there's this sort of the other tech priest just stops dead in the middle of this chant, and everything, and it sort of this just fades away, and he turns and looks at you and goes, "Something is wrong. Please follow me, brother. I may need your assistance." And turns and walks towards one of the walls. A gap, basically walks towards a spot between two of the plinths.
Okay.
And as he approaches, the wall, the whole sort of panel of the wall just slides up at his approach. And you can see beyond the glow of like computer systems and sort of other tech
It's the
in
server
this room. A little bit. It has that sort of. It might have that sort of glowing feel to of it. As he sort of moves towards it, this slides up, and he sort of goes towards this room.
Okay.
This is evil there.
I don't really feel I have a choice at this point in time. So
I believe in you.
I'm gonna follow, but as I pass, am I kind of passing between these plinths as I go?
Yeah, there's a plinth on either side of this sort of. There's a sort of just a bare bit of wall between there's bare wall between the plinths, and one of them's just slid up.
Okay, can I just, as I pass through, can I just have a quick look at these plinths? Because you said that the pattern of this light resembled the patterns on some of the plinths. Can I just check what they're doing, if anything has changed with them?
The plinths look.
The plinths are fine.
Yeah, there's nothing.
man.
The two you've passed have got glass boxes on them, not power fields. And what's inside them seems to be... One of them you're fairly sure is a... You are fairly sure it's from a void station because it looks like the control box for a airlock.
Okay.
The control systems for an airlock in one, and in the other is this sort of coiled spring thing with... It's a coiled spring, and it's obviously got some core to it, which seems to be a cylinder of steel. And then hanging off it are feathers and stones tied to leather that have just been tied onto this... all been tied to this sort of spring.
It's like a machine cult's dream catcher. Okay. Fine. I'll follow through this doorway.
You enter into
I'm
basically...
too intrigued not to.
You enter into what looks like a workspace. It looks like it's a cross between a tech priest's office and workshop, basically. Okay. This particular one is quite obviously his. There's quite a lot of tanks and liquids and machinery that seems to be... It's all technology that seems to relate to his work in the biological realm.
Cybernetic enhancement type stuff.
Cybernetic enhancements. There's bits and pieces that look like they might be related to rejuvenant treatment, which sort of extension of life type stuff, which is you can get in the Imperium, but it's expensive and often only the rich or the powerful have access to. And there's a few bits that look like severed limbs in jars connected to bits of equipment. And there's one particularly large tank that seems to run the length, which seems to have a collection of a cross between a piranha and a turtle. And there's like a dozen of these things, and it's bolted basically to one wall and part of the ceiling. And they seem to be just sort of swimming around in this sort of vaguely murky, bluey grey liquid.
Okay.
He's gone straight over to one of the computer terminals, one of the cogitator terminals, and he's sort of tapping away at this. And one of his this mechandrite has sort of slid out of sort of a gap in his robe. He still hasn't moved his arms; they're still sort of tucked in. And this mechandrite sort of comes around and sort of something comes out of the end, and he plugs it into onto this machine. And he stands there for a few seconds, and then goes. He turns to you and goes, "The temple systems have registered an unexpected seismic activity in the vicinity. We haven't had any form of hivequake in this location for 3.6 standard years, and our estimation suggested that we shouldn't expect one for at least the same again. Would you be able to access the terminal?" And one of his mechandrites sort of gestures, "and interface and confirm my findings, please, brother?"
Yeah. Do I have the ability to do that?
You do.
Okay, then yes.
It's a fairly standard. This is a fairly standard piece of equipment.
Okay.
So it's something you recognise. It's fairly easy to do, and the moment you plug in, you feel the machine on the edge of your senses, as well as sort of physically. You get a screen lights up, and you can tap away at the keys like a keypad, but you can also feel information sort of at the edge of your consciousness that you could reach out and touch or pull around with your sort of draw it into yourself or move it around as sort of in the greater machine, shall we say.
Can I determine through any of this the location of this seismic activity?
He sort of, you feel his sort of mechanical presence on the edge of this, and an information sort of packet gets sent to you, which from him, which shows what he's found.
Okay.
And you take one look at it, and it sort of gives you other information relating.
And you go, "I left them alone for 5 minutes."
And it is directly. This is directly underneath the church on the other side of the square. It's not a huge movement, but it's so close to the temple that it's been picked up. and you kind of you look at it, and it's this thing of as you look at it, it's not a perfect in your sort of your earpiece. You just hear Galva go, "Is the floor moving?"
Okay. Okay, so I'm now aware that these guys are.
Something's happening.
Yeah. So I'm going to respond to the Magos, and I'm going to tell him that my colleagues were going to worship with Shepherd Darius, and I believe that they may have some additional information that could help us to work out what's going on. Do I have the ability to communicate with them through this building that I'm in? Can I?
The environs of the temple often interfere with radio signals. However, you should be able to access the main Voxmast through the terminal.
Okay.
Boosted, you should have no trouble contacting them.
Okay, Galva, what's all this about the floor moving?
You hear this literally as this thing goes up, and like as you're you've been hearing everything that's been going on. So you've heard the sound of the echo of gunfire. You can hear the hubbub of voices, and then
screaming.
the odd scream, and then you hear even through you hear the crack of this. There's this sort of weird cracking sound, and then there is this sort of. You can hear in the background people sort of shouting and screaming.
Mm.
You get, as the thing's flying through the air, you get a, Galva, what's going on?
The floor is not in the floor anymore.
Can you be more specific?
It's about 2 stories up.
Can anybody else be more specific, please?
Approximately a 7-metre section of the floor has just exploded out of the ground.
Within the temple?
That's what I said.
Yes.
Is anything coming out of the hole, or is it just a hole?
At the moment, there's this sort of dark hole, but you can hit...
How clearly can we see the Aquila now?
There's still some
on the
people
floor.
on the way.
It's quite clear, and it's a...
Has it separated so there's just half an Aquila with one head?
It's sort of where it's broken. It's definitely only got one head left. But it's ragged where it's broken, and part of the top of the wing has been sort of shattered and broken and seems to be falling away into this hole. It doesn't seem very deep, but it certainly, there's darkness there. And out of it, there's this smell emanating, and it is a horrible smell starts to waft across. It is the smell of blocked drains and sewers and sewage outfalls, and the depths of the hive sort of starts to waft out, and you can hear a sort of, as it quietens down again, there's this sort of hissing breathing sound that anyone who's within about 15 metres of, even like 10-15 metres of the hole can hear.
Is there anyone still in near me where I told them to kind of sit tight?
There's a few people who seem to have sort of listened to you, and they've sort of all huddled in the corner of where the side wall and the sort of front wall meet, and there's about 30 or 40 people sort of
in terms of
huddled.
Where that is and where the door is and where the hole is.
They would have to if they passed along that edge of the wall. They would have to pass sort of where the hole would be, but it would be quite a long way away.
What does Shepherd Darius look like at this point? You could say I'm perhaps scrutinising him.
He has...
As am I.
He has sort of... As he's got closer, and the floors obviously move, when it blasts up, he basically grabs a few people, because he's got quite close, and sort of pulls them back.
Oh.
And sort of pushes them away. And as it sort of gets, he's stumbled backwards, and he's actually hit the floor on his back, and he's sort of lying prone on the floor as the as the floor goes flying.
Is the floor still?
It's still gently moving,
But it's kind of settled a bit.
it's a bit more settled, but obviously now it's not fully supported, because you can see where joists have been smashed out.
I'm just going to contour all of you guys and let you know that this is not a naturally occurring event. This is not seismic activity, and I think you probably need to leave. Get Darius and leave, because we don't know if this is going to continue.
There is, from the hole, a screech, and it is a horrible screeching sound. And you start to see movement in the dark, and then this horrible, pallid, clammy, white arm and hand comes out and reaches and sort of grabs onto the floor edge, and these sort of claws dig in.
When you say hand,
When I say hand,
Human hand.
when I say hand,
I'm thinking this might be like bigger than.
this is probably about the span of it. It only seems to have 4 digits, and the span of it is about 1.5 foot across.
I wonder why
That's the span of the hand.
That's the span of the hand, yeah.
But it's not a human hand.
No, it's definitely not. But it's definitely jointed fingers. There's only 4
I'm
of them.
Look at them. Go now, now,
Somebody get Darius.
and then
We
run
need
across
him.
the other because they're going to
Can
go
I
along that
head towards
wall.
Darius whilst getting my flamer out and firing it at the hand?
Well, first of
Just
all,
try
we
and
need to
drop whatever it
identify
is
the
back.
targets, don't we?
What was his facial
I think it's
reaction?
safe to say that the hand isn't on our side.
No, but what is the hand? Is it a servant of chaos?
Yeah,
Is it
but I just want to
Xenos?
delay it.
You pull out the flamer and the pilot and sort of light the pilot light as you run across as you sort of run across the floor.
What was Darius's facial feature?
At this
So
point,
was it shock? Was it hey finally, or was
it was a certain amount
ecstasy.
of shock, and at this point he sort of it probably looks like
A bit dazed.
he's a bit dazed. He's probably sort of partly landed on his head as he hit the floor and bounced his head off the floor, and he's looking a little bit glazed. But you can see he's got quite big sort of sleeves to his robes, and they fought them back, and you can see down, anyone who's nearby can see down his arms, he's got, quite obviously, he's got tattoos on his forearm.
Suspicious individual.
Not
Yeah.
lots of them, but he's obviously got images tattooed on
One's
his
of
arms.
Mario.
It was me all
do any
along.
of them look like the tattoos on that chap that we'd met before? The ones in the one in the cathedral that have the kind of almost imperial creed, but not quite.
When you get close enough to see them, they're quite obviously. Then they are quite obviously crudely done, and they seem to be. Well, if you get close, you recognise them more.
I'm not that close.
Close.
Though.
No.
I'm
I'm
moved.
They're roughly done, but they seem to be. There's imperial symbols, but there's also definitely blades and
From my
more martial looking.
from my common law war, would I say they're Imperial Guard?
They look like Imperial Guard tattoos. And they don't look like they've been professionally done. These look more like the local barracks room.
Cheap ones that a soldier might have done.
Yeah,
I probably arrested a few soldiers.
they look a little bit like the sort of local barracks room specialist has done it, rather than
A professional.
a professional tattooist has done them. Which is, they're a little bit blurred around the edges, and
Well, while we're admiring the body paint, I'm going to lob a frag grenade down the hole.
So where I've kind of told the people to go,
yeah,
I'm imagining kind of because you said they were in a corner.
they've
So
basically
they've got to
run
go
along the wall.
to get out.
Yeah.
I want to jump down and run the opposite, like 45,
Wall.
45, 90, yeah, that way. But like jump down and make lots of
Noise.
heavy that way.
Okay.
So if it's going to come out, it's coming for me and not everyone else.
We'll just pray my frag grenade hits, because otherwise you're all fucked. I hit. I rolled a 12. So 3 degrees of success.
Fair enough.
Just throw it into the hole.
Fair enough. You pull a frag grenade out, pin. It doesn't land in the hole, but it sort of bounces and rolls and drops into the hole.
Fire in the hole!
Everyone take a... Ooh.
If he is shouting a warning, I will kind of...
Yeah, you've all got a warning at least.
Fire in the hole!
Did we just get a warning that there's an unnatural phenomenon causing an earthquake, and then you threw a grenade into it?
Yep.
Yes!
Like a hero.
That's what happened.
Yep, you've basically... You hear fire in the hole as you're moving towards said hole.
No.
Away.
Well,
Yeah, they were. They were like,
The
oh,
priest
we
is
need
moving
help.
towards said
Yeah,
hole. Yeah. Can you all give me an agility test at minus 10,
I was afraid you'd
please?
say that.
I rolled a 2!
Hey!
Just.
I failed by 4 degrees.
Oh no, he falls into the hole!
I passed by 2. Not degrees.
You can...
What are you reading?
There's prayers for the Emperor during
okay.
combat situations.
He's finding the one...
I'm just seeing if there's anything for blowing up priests. Blowing up enemies.
Forgiveness?
Well, you could get both.
Yeah, that's true. You can use a fate point to reroll.
How close were you?
Yeah, that's
Blessing
what I
of
could
the
do.
bomb.
I wasn't anywhere near.
You weren't near
it was
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes out and there is this... You hear a...
No, I got the same thing.
How long is it?
Exactly the same roll.
Yeah, how long a fuse was it?
64.
It's as long as this prayer takes.
Okay.
All
So
right.
it says, "You are the weapon of men, a bright short light to blast the foe when darkness descends. You are the bomb of men, to lift the foe from their feet, so they no longer profane the Emperor's soul." So it's that long. So quite a long.
Does this help?
About 5 seconds.
Of course it does.
That's about 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Counted 12 seconds.
There
So
you
about
go.
12 seconds.
12 seconds. Gives
Oh,
you
well,
enough
which-
time, Liam.
At which point, you hear there's a dull sort of...
Nice.
and
And then
sort
a
of
roar.
the odd bit of shrapnel pings out, and you get a sort of... There's a definite sort of movement of the floor,
Yes.
and this hand sort of slides slightly, so it's right on the edge, and there is this... It is a deep, guttural roar of pain
Woohoo!
comes out of the hole in the floor, and another arm sort of reaches out and digs like claws into the floor.
Oh no, I made it angry!
You pick up you pick up the
Fire in the hole.
Bug!
fire in the hole,
We found
and then
enough rounds!
and then the systems register another sort of seismic activity in the same location.
One that could be familiar to some form of explosive.
Yeah,
Yes.
it definitely has the profile of a
Small
of a
explosive.
Small handheld
small
explosive device.
handheld device.
So I heard the warning from Griff that
You
this
would
was
have heard it over
Yes,
the combi.
fire
Yeah.
okay.
in the hole.
So I'm just gonna reassure the Magos that
Everything's under control.
this was
Blowing up
this
my
was planned.
hive.
This was planned. Everything's fine.
It was a controlled
Everything's
explosion.
absolutely fine.
An unusual thing to find a group willing to destroy the floor, to destroy a imperial church.
It's all in
I
the name
assume
of...
you mean that your friends are well prepared for the unexpected.
Yes, it's all in the name of protecting the Emperor's children, I'm sure.
We will
That'll
point
take
out
too
that
long to
Mark does
explain.
not understand what he just said, but don't worry, we heard it too.
Sorry,
We'll explain later.
Don't worry about it.
It takes a long, complicated thing. You're absolutely fine.
Yeah. It is something that actually would be a perfectly normal thing to... It would be unusual for you to say. No, kind of. And you get a sort of... the equivalent of a sort of mechanical electronic shrug as he goes, I may have some questions for you once we have fully catalogued the nature of this event.
From where I am, can I see any more of this thing besides its arms?
You can see sort of...
Or is it literally just like pitch black? below
It's not. It's now not pitch black. You can see something moving, and there's a definite glisten, like a sheen to it, as
So if
to
its
the moving
hands
thing.
are 1.5 feet
About that.
wide, So
There's definitely about a 10, 11, 12 foot gap between the two hands.
Oh, it's a chunky boy.
okay.
So can we see like shoulders or heads or anything?
You can start to see, it looks
rather
like
not.
a lump. Let's put it like that. You can see a lump start to move, and you can see as it sort of you can see it sort of drag itself out into the light. You can see a sort of same colour. It's this glistening, horrible lump of
Lumpiness.
skin and muscle starts to heave itself out of the
Nothing good
thing.
ever comes from a glistening lump.
What's my situation after failing my test?
You are knocked to the floor.
Yeah.
You basically, as you start to sort of roll to your feet. Hopefully, you didn't critically fail, did you?
No.
That's fine. You didn't accidentally trigger your flamer in the process, because setting fire to the floor might be a bad idea.
Hilarious.
Well,
Well, you know, most of this church has been burned down before, so
okay. So at this point, seeing this kind of weird, like horrendous looking thing coming out of the ground from nowhere, I'm going to swish the auto gun from under my coat into my hands and just open fire into the thing on fully auto.
Fair enough. Anyone who can see the hole at this point, can you please give me a willpower test at -10?
Unless you're
Right.
me, because I have a skill.
I have unshakable faith.
I have pure faith.
I
Together we can form the
passed.
Faith Squad.
Fair enough.
I rolled a 6.
You both mutter prayers to the Emperor under your breath as this
I'm getting
thing
quite
starts
excited
to
about burning some heretics.
drag it out of it.
I
Yeah,
have
so I'm
tempered will.
completely immune to demonic presence, and
I
I'm
have failed
affected
by
it.
1 point.
1
Is
point.
it demonic presence?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
fine.
going to keep going.
You keep running, but
That's it.
you certainly start to curve away from the hole.
So
And maybe try less hard to make lots of noise.
Yeah.
I
Just-
ignore demonic presence.
Nope.
Or is this a fear test?
It is effectively a fear test.
So if it's not demonic presence, I can spend a fate point and become immune to fear. So I'll do that.
You're going to become immune to fear.
Yes, I do have like
You-
blessed ignorance and stuff. So
You could just roll.
no, because I don't want to fail and run away. Well,
You-
this is our first combat, Roger. I want to look cool in front of my friends.
You mutter a prayer to the Emperor. It's one of the oldest you know. It was sort of something you learned
Oh, he's
when
got
you're a
one.
young...
He's got one in the book.
It's one of those ones that you learn as a young child. Just a prayer to the Emperor for his protection and his faith. And
It's probably just the first one in there, John.
Yeah, mighty Emperor, spread your divine light to protect me from darkness.
yep, you feel you get this sort of warm feeling infuse you, and you
Christ himself.
from outside you start to, from outside you start to hear the sound of people singing imperial hymns.
Nice. Fucking Imperial Saint.
Right, at this point,
I need a pencil.
everyone,
Does anyone have a pencil? Pure faith.
it's initiative time, everybody.
Yay!
How do we do that?
So I get to act
This is the
first
first
because I
time doing
initiated
initiative.
combat.
Right.
It's agility, isn't it?
Is it
It's D10 plus your agility bonus.
By the power of Grayskull.
The tech priest turns to you and goes, the use of
13.
weapons suggests a dangerous presence. I am activating the support systems. The temple is going into lockdown. However, if you wish to assist your friends, I can give you access to one of the servitor guards that you can access remotely.
Oh, so you can control a servitor guard.
Okay. Yes. In light of my my apparent recent faux pas, I'm gonna reiterate that my allegiance is to the Mechanicus. Obviously.
You're going to pilot the servitor?
Yeah. Why not? Why
Shout
not?
Robot
I've got-
Wars as you charge him.
Can I? I do have.
No, 3, 2, 1.
Activate!
I do have
comes out.
common law robot wars. So,
Craig
yeah,
Charles.
fair enough. That's
Yeah.
The holy saint of the Mechanicum. Praise be his name.
Can you imagine? Became a godlike figure.
Craig
Who
Charles.
do you think the Omnisaur is?
Ah, it's Craig Charles all along.
Plot twist.
You get a sort of a buzz on the edge of your consciousness as the you sort of feel a connection to another system to become active. Then you can sort of feel it on the edge of your sort of vision and hearing. It is on the edge of your vision and hearing, but it's
Can
obviously
I feel it in my fingers?
a little bit, yeah.
Can I feel it in my toes?
Possibly
You have
depends
toes.
on how much you've got.
Do I have toes?
Asking the important questions.
You've got
Yeah.
people legs, don't you still?
Technology
For
is
now.
all around me. And so are the people.
And the screen sort of changes.
Cover.
It sort of fades away, and there is a numeral 3 appears, followed by a 2, followed by a 1, followed by a symbol of the symbol of the Mechanicum flashes up, and then the screen sort of opens up. It's obviously a view through a camera or like a vision system, of a door sort of rising, and you can see the square ahead of you.
So I'm now
And-
perceiving what the thing
And
is. Yeah.
as you sort of you can feel the control of this servitor on the edge of your perception, and as you sort of take control of it, it's almost like mentally grabbing it.
Yeah.
Within your vision, sort of, you get like an overlay lights up in your vision, so you've effectively almost got like a tactical UI generates, but it's this sort of weird greeny vision, similar to the one you saw on the symbol, sort of activates inside your vision, so it's overlaying what you can see.
Nice. Okay.
Like
This is not
specific
something
rhythm.
you've ever had happen before. It's a little bit strange, but as you take control, this sort of servitor, the viewpoint you get moves out into the square, and you can see
Within my control.
within your control.
Right.
You can see the
All
sort
the
of.
people.
There's a lot of people crowding around. There's a few people sort of lying on the sort of sat around or lying on the floor. There's other people sort of comforting people around.
Mm.
And there's this crowd, and you also start to get a sort of weird tinny sound in your ear, which is the sound of singing, but it's slightly weird because you can hear the same thing echoed through your other ear.
Okay.
It's a slight Doppler effect of
Yeah,
having
yeah, yeah.
two different microphones picking up from different places the same thing.
Okay. Can I determine whether this thing that I'm controlling, is there any danger to me if this thing is harmed or?
Doesn't seem to be.
Okay.
If it shuts down, then unless you spend a lot of time controlling it, very very using it like another body,
Yeah. It's not.
then
gonna-
it's probably not going to do. If you like that, it would do you damage. This is
At the moment
basically
you're playing an
remote
arcade game.
controlling.
Okay.
Playing a video game.
Yeah.
Okay,
this
well,
is
I'm
remote
gonna-
controlling.
Remote desktop.
I'm gonna burst into the church and say, "Get away from her, you bitch!"
I thought you were going to shout Transformers more than meets the eye.
No. Can I get through the
You
the crowd
as you move towards the
It's
crowd
fun.
and people, you see people sort of turn to look at you, and this sort of corridor opens ahead of you.
Nice.
Mechanicum, roll out.
As people just get out of the way of this thing, because you can't actually see what you are. All you've got is the view out. So, but you can definitely feel weapon system controls slaved into it. So it's
Right.
some form of mechanical guardian.
I still have contact with these guys, right?
Yeah.
I can still communicate. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of let you guys know that I'm kind of rolling in some kind of
Servitor body.
yeah. I don't know what I look like, but I'm coming. So don't kill me, please. And try and get a. Well, can I see where the source of the
You're still outside the building, but you're
Oh.
sort of moving across towards the front doors of the building at this
Okay.
point. So you need to roll initiative as well.
So roll a dice.
so that's again.
roll.
Roll a d10.
1d10,
Oh.
and then add the first number of your agility. Of your,
So I rolled a 5.
7.
okay. So,
Is that good?
what are your numbers,
better than
people?
Find out.
13.
13,
10.
10,
5.
5.
7,
7 and
13.
13.
Yay!
Do
So-
I act first? So I was the one that pulled the gun and
So
opened
the higher
fire.
number goes first.
I'm prone.
Oh, I see.
It's just
You
their
have
turn order.
you do have a
Ah,
drop on
okay,
it, so
gotcha.
I'll give you a surprise round.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. You do get a surprise round drop on it. So full auto with an auto gun
Yeah, I
into the
literally
hole.
used quick draw, pulling it out from behind the coat, out of seemingly nowhere, and just unload.
Well, you're using a fully automatic weapon into a hole, and this thing, it's quite a bit of it in the hole. So it's a plus 30 to hit it on top of whatever other bonuses you get.
Oh, sweet.
So that's
Plus 50 overall. I'm assuming from range and everything.
Yeah, because
And
you're
size.
practically on top of it. It's a very big thing. Yeah,
13 to hit.
13 to hit.
So
against.
I was on 95, so
Oh dear.
8 degrees of success, so 9 bullets hit. Because my gun is full auto 10, because it's an auto gun.
Okay. Right, fair enough.
Nope.
So, you rolled a 13, 31,
So,
you body into the mass of this thing that's rising out of the
Glistening
hole.
lump.
Yeah.
Auto gun. Plus 3. So 10 damage from the first shot.
Okay.
6. Ooh, 10. Plus
So we're writing this
5,
down.
15, 18.
Yep.
4. 11. 6. 6. Nope. So 13. And 12.
It's not usually this many numbers.
He has just opened up with a fully automatic rifle into it.
With a very high rate of fire.
So they're the individual damage levels for each.
Yeah,
Each
for each
one of
shot.
those
Each
is a
bullet.
shot. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a screeching sound, and this you can see bunching muscles in the arms as this thing starts to pull itself out. So 13s were the next highest, yeah?
Yes.
Who has the higher agility? Because you both got the same.
Liam?
31.
34.
You're going next.
Did that hurt it?
It did. You can
Is
definitely
it
see.
bleeding?
You can
Because if
see.
it bleeds, we can kill it.
You can definitely see these sort of wounds. There's definitely gunshot wounds in the top of it, there is a sort of murky brown fluid sort of leaking from some of them.
Does it have a defined head?
Not that you can see yet.
It hasn't stood up yet.
Okay. I won't do the full auto. I'm going to take a called shot
Okay.
to its left elbow.
Mhm.
Because if it's pulling itself up, I imagine it weighs a lot. If I can get that elbow off,
Okay.
it
You're
may
going
fall back in the hole. So, what's the minus for a called shot?
20.
20.
Well, I'll get plus 30, so I'll get plus 10 on top of my normal bonuses.
Yep.
Bam! I rolled a 61, which isn't enough to hit it, I don't think, unfortunately. I just missed.
Just missed.
Do I want to adjust down, which would make it a hit? No, it's a bit too early in the fight to be spending fate points. So I just go...
It sort of scorches across the flesh.
Yeah.
And you can see a sort of dark burn sort of scores across part of the arm, but it doesn't seem to bother it in any way, shape,
Oh,
or
well.
form.
I just thought that would be... Like, if its own weight could drag it down.
Do we need to
Can
concentrate fire on one particular
Guys.
Can I
point?
try and determine what it is from what I can see so far? Is it
You
not
can try.
Is it
some
forbidden
kind of
law?
mutant? Or I have forbidden law.
Forbidden.
Whisper it.
Heresy. It's
I'm
intelligence,
blessed
isn't it?
ignorance.
No, I didn't pass that.
No, it doesn't appear to be. It's weird. It's weird and a bit horrible, but it doesn't feel wrong. In
Does
the
it
sort
seem
of,
like a mutant.
it doesn't have that wrongness that you have come to associate with
Chaos.
the dark powers as such.
Okay. And can I see the Shepherd? Is he still?
Yeah, he's sort of gently dragging himself up on his elbows,
Okay.
and he sort of caught sight of this thing, and he sort of just stopped and frozen.
I want to try and continue round to him.
Okay.
That's kind of round the hole and
Yeah.
flame the hand if I can.
You can move. You can move around it, but sort of you're concentrating on identifying it at that point.
Yeah.
So the flame is there and ready,
Okay.
but
I'll keep my eyes on each of them.
Like a chameleon.
fair enough.
I want to make sure that he doesn't run off whilst
So,
fighting
next
it,
up-
basically.
Roger
Is
again, isn't it?
On 10.
10. So yes, because you got 7.
7,
yeah,
yeah.
so 10.
Again, I'm just going to repeat what I did before.
Rat-a-tat-tat.
So you got to go first because he surprised it.
Okay.
And
9.
then-
Yeah, that's
And
pretty
then
good.
in order,
8
combat
degrees,
started,
so 9
then
hits
it's a
again.
natural draw.
9 hits.
Fair
enough.
I guess I probably just haven't moved the gun, just trying to hold it steady.
Do you want some more d10s to make this
How
a bit
many
faster?
rounds do you use before you run
At least
out?
I went.
I can do this once more before the gun goes click, 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 click.
We'll just give Roger some more d10s to speed this up.
Oh, right, that's clever.
So I need to roll.
Nine
If
of them.
if it's actually kind of
7, so 2 more.
approximately
And they're all +3, aren't they?
scaled, it's
some
probably
of them
about
aren't bad,
25
so
to 30 foot
one-
tall,
Right, okay.
So
by my estimation.
It's literally
a
Optimus
10, 7,
I don't mean
4,
you, I mean it.
4,
Yes, I
Yeah.
know.
5.
But it's about the size
5.
of Optimus Prime. Don't know why I'm
Do you
making all these
confirm that one?
Transformers references.
Oh dear.
Oh, nice. Another 10.
Oh dear. This one might actually do something.
26.
Well, we know who's pissed it off.
And
That
then
guy.
the last 2. An 11 and an 8.
Yeah, that had a slightly... You must have basically not changed the point you're firing at. Because the
Boring
bullets...
a
just-
hole.
yeah, literally, you've just kept into the same point. And at one point there is this sort of fleshy explosion, and there's this just sort of mist of blood. And, well, I suppose it's blood, but it's this sort of
Goo.
mist of brown, liquidy goo bursts out of the top of this thing. And there is this sort of keening scream, and the arms sort of go a bit wobbly, and then the sort of claws dig back in as this thing then hauls itself out of the pit, and you can see the sort of up to effectively about its waist come out. And I'm going to show you what it is.
It's a raid boss.
Oh, it's...
I'm
What is it?
visualising a
That's a giant pile of no. I don't like it.
I can't see it.
Well,
Alright,
that's-
we'll just flick it
that's
around so they
attractive.
can see,
That is disgusting.
and we'll just see if we can give everyone at home a little view of what they are seeing pulling itself out of the
So
floor.
pretty.
Yeah.
That's not what I would say.
So it does kind of have a head.
And it's a weird...
It's kind of got a
Just
mouth
a
in its
more-
body.
Yeah, you can see. As you can see, it is
Wrong
quite
kind of more.
squat, and it has got sort of quite sort of simian limb like arms.
Do you have any, like, creature identifying stuff, being a
Yes,
creature person?
but it's not my turn yet.
I
No,
reckon it's a mutant.
this thing drags itself out, and sort of
It's an
as
enemy of
it's-
mankind, and that's good enough for me.
as
It's
its
not
head
human, so
the
kill
sort
it.
of the weird maw
Blessed
head
ignorance.
appears with this sort of quite large sort of drool of ichor sort of flowing down its head. This sort of it's quite a sort of a weird sort of tongue sort of flicks out of the sort of the face, and sort of you can see it sort of tasting its own blood with its tongue as it sort of drags itself out, and about half of it's now sort of pulled itself out of the hole, and one hand sort of reaches out and digs further into the floor. It's now Bug's turn.
What can I do? I don't know what I've got on this thing.
The door's open.
You come up the steps, and from the rattle of it, it's quite obviously you seem to think you're on tracks
Okay.
because you sort of rattled up it's a little bit of a sort of back up.
Oh, I see.
View.
Yeah, yeah.
As
yeah.
you come onto the top, the doors are open, and you can inside. You can you hear the rattle of automatic gunfire, and you can see sort of this dark sort of hole in the floor with this creature starting to rear out of it as you come through the door.
Okay. Do I know what weapons I've got?
No, not well. It's the as you. This thing seems to have its own threat indicator, and it sort of you get this ping. This thing pings up, which suggests the weapons are now live.
Okay.
And one seems to have a counter on it, like a number counter on one arm, and the other seems to have
Fuel gauge?
like a power gauge.
Okay. So it's some kind of an energy weapon.
Yeah, safe to assume.
Okay.
Just pull the trigger and find out.
So, well, would I be rolling for intelligence because I'm not actually firing the weapons myself? It's
Well,
through
at this point, you are controlling it. It's up to you.
I see. Okay.
You can either choose to fire it yourself, so you take control of the weapon,
Yeah.
or you can let the targeting systems of the machine do the actual firing.
Can I just run the thing's hands over in my tanky body?
This
crush it.
You're still looking up at this thing.
Oh, I see.
It's got out.
It's the
It's that far out that
as
it's now
you-
towering above.
as you've moved past people, it's fairly sure you're only about.
6, 7.
You're probably only about. You're still only about 6 foot high.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more. So you're not massively. It doesn't seem like you're massively bigger than
So
a human.
I'm like a mech type thing rather than an actual tank.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not that big, I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
it's,
Can I
it's like
see-
a person with robot bits.
It's like Iron Man.
Okay. But less smug, hopefully.
Well, the
and
servitor has no personality, so yeah.
There you go. Can I see where Lex is hit?
You can't see it.
probably wrong angle because I think I'm behind it.
Oh, I see.
And also it's now higher than you can actually shoot
So-
down
right.
into. But you
Right,
can
okay.
see the sort of you can see it's been injured because you can see this sort of drizzle of brown running down its
Yeah.
sort of head, shoulder, and starting
Knees and
sort of
toes.
down the chest.
So
of it.
I'm going to assume from that it's been injured in that area, and the head's the obvious target anyway. So, can I access the targeting system to see if it can get some kind of a lock?
You want to basically attempt to cold shot the head.
Essentially, if I
Yeah.
can, if the angle's right,
Are you going to use your ballistic skill or are you going to use its?
I'm going to work on the assumption that this piece of technology has better ballistic skills than mine,
Fair enough.
That's a good assumption.
which are only 24.
That's
So-
a very good assumption.
So yes, I'm gonna
Okay.
put my faith in the.
You give me a tech use test.
Okay. So I've got
And
plus 10 on that.
no, that's
Choose
it.
your weapon system. Left arm or right arm?
So the left was the thing with the countdown, and the right was the thing with the energy
cache.
gauge.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the right
Okay.
because I think that's going to be a bit more of a surgical strike rather than something that could potentially just bounce off somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
4. 4.
Yes.
Nice.
How many degrees of success was that?
4.
Well, it's
Oh.
yeah.
4 degrees.
Yeah, it's 4 degrees.
4
yeah.
degrees. Okay. Have an extra plus 20 because you've given it some information to improve the targeting of itself. So its
Okay.
ballistic skill is 40.
So you're rolling on 60s.
So you're on 60s
Plus the 20.
to hit.
So its one's different to yours.
Yeah.
So you've got its is a base 40. So its sheet would have a 40 on it.
Oh, I see.
Plus the 20
See.
that Loz has given you for telling it where.
So I've got to roll
So you're
against
rolling
60,
60,
essentially.
Yeah.
Leave. That's good. 7.
Ooh.
No,
Oh, no.
97.
97. Fake point.
And
Oh,
jab.
can I fate point
You
it?
can fate point things like this, yes. If you want to use
There
one to
can
re-roll
be
it.
I will.
Miracles if you
79.
Oh, missed.
There is a
Thank you.
flash.
At least we know what it is now.
There's a flash, and a sort of crack sound as a las bolt flicks out of basically the arm. What you guys see is a servitor roll in. It's tracked basically from about where its knees should be is a track unit. Other than that, it's sort of a fairly heavy set human figure with lots of obviously lots of cybernetics and other things bolted into it.
Mhm.
This was once a person. However, this person has done something that basically means they have literally wiped his mind and stuck a load of computer chips in to effectively lobotomize him
Lovely.
and turn it into
Slave
a
unit.
semi-human.
Do you know the Borg from Star Trek?
Yes.
But
Basically
with no free will of any type. It's literally just following commands like a computer. This one's still got a reasonable amount of the human left to it. It's obviously human, but attached where one wrist arm should be is the protruding edge of what looks like a las weapon, and the other one seems to have a 3-barreled. It seems to be rotating 3 barrels poking out of where would be the other wrist, and a large sort of
Like an
ammo belt that sort of comes down from somewhere on its back around its arm, sort of then vanishes into its forearm.
Cool.
I don't know that, do I?
You
I
you
see
can kind
the
of see
arms?
that you can see the ends as the arms come up.
Like
Okay.
playing Doom.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit actually.
Okay.
That's exactly how it is.
So yeah, you see a lasbolt crack out, and it just sort of again skims a shoulder, and you can see a blackened mark, and actually you get a zoom in from a sort of
Action replay.
in your sort of vision. You get it actually automatically zooms in on the point of damage,
Should have
and-
zoomed in before I fired it.
and
Like
you
a
can
Fallout
see
bat.
and you can see a sort of black score
It's fine, you can do that next time.
through its shoulder,
Yes. Okay.
but it doesn't seem to be bothered by it,
Oh, gosh.
Right.
It's up to you, Galva.
Yeah, tell us what it is.
which makes it your go.
So I was running around away-ish. Scholastic Lord Beasts.
Yep.
Worth a shot.
Mhm.
Yeah, no idea what that is.
Oh,
No idea.
fate point?
And then how close am I to that far wall now?
So the back wall of the
Yeah.
building. At this point, you're probably 3/4 of the way to it.
Okay. Cool. So, and then how far away is that?
We'll say about 20 meters.
That's
from
in
you.
range. Shotgun! And I'm just going to line it up because I've already kind of done stuff.
Okay.
But
You're gonna aim on it.
I'm putting that between it and me.
Fair
Hoping
enough.
that it doesn't come in this direction.
So, back round to the guardsman. This thing's now quite obvious there's quite a bit more of it.
Is it out of the hole or is it still leaning on its arms? Trying to get...
It seems to be sort of dragging itself forward. It's sort of hauled the top of its body sort of up, and it's sort of leaning onto the remains of the floor and sort of dragging itself forward.
Okay, I'll switch to semi-automatic and aim for its hand.
don't think they've got a semi.
And they don't?
No.
I'll keep on single
Oh
shot.
no, they do semi 3, but you can't do a cold shot with a semi.
Then I'll keep it on single and do a chord shot.
Cool shot to the hand. Okay.
Bam, bum, 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 bum. I did hit that time
18.
with 49, so 3 degrees of success.
Okay. So you get an extra. So you get 2 hits on it.
It's only a single shot.
Only
Single shot. Yeah.
Bam.
Of course. Yeah.
Aim for the
So,
fingers.
yeah.
Just 2d10, does it? Or 1?
D10 plus 3.
Bam! Ooh,
9.
9 points of damage to the finger.
Fair enough. There's you see the sort of burn going to the hand, and there is a sort of the hand sort of you could see it tense. There's a pain response as it tenses, and it sort of you hear it scratch on the wood as the claws sort of scrape along it as this lasbolt sort of
It's
digs
organ.
into its
I've got an
hand.
organ.
Or well, as the bullet
Yeah.
goes in, and there's a sort of cratered wound on the back of its hand, and anyone who's particularly close can just see the tendons moving underneath as the
Lovely.
hand sort of grips into it.
Nice. Nice.
Not close enough.
No,
I'm the
So,
wrong side. I'm behind the
you're
thing.
behind it. Yeah, you
There's
are
a big
it's-
hole and
It. Yeah, you can hear the sound of the lasbolts going off, but you can't really see.
I can't
There's
see
sort
much.
of Galva off to one side of you, and you're probably just visible around the other edge, heading for the preacher on the floor.
How far away from him am I now? And has he moved?
He is still there, staring at this thing. He's sort of
Okay.
probably trying to work out if he's actually seeing what he thinks he's seeing.
Am I
You
able
could-
to just kind of flame it as I continue
You can,
around
if you
it?
run,
Yeah.
you could basically just trigger the flamer as you run
Yeah,
at
I'll
it.
basically just spray it.
Spray and pray.
Spray and pray.
It's
However,
high enough out now that I want to try and just not aim for the floor, which is made of wood.
it is wood,
So
yeah.
I'll
It's a
try
wooden
to
floor.
aim up slightly.
There's enough of it there to
Yeah.
aim for. Yeah, you can do that. You can't really aim it. It is sort of pull the trigger and run.
Well, I'm just aiming not at the floor. That's as far as aiming goes.
Fair enough. It's definitely a minus 20 for triggering it on the run.
No,
You
91.
You flame the ceiling?
You sort of you
Never been too worried
you
about
burn-
it.
Do not hit the floor.
you do sort of a burst of flame out of it, but it sort of as you're moving, you misjudge it, and it sort of it washes. It's not a tight enough cone. You basically do this huge billowing cloud of flame,
Which
it
looks
sort of-
awesome.
It looks great. It's very impressive, but it does sort of wash against its skin, and you can see the sort of. Well, you don't see because obviously the flame and the smoke.
You smell a faint sizzle.
Well, there is a definite. You hear a sort of popping sound
Yeah.
of something of something drying out and evaporating very quickly, and there's this sort of definite sizzling sound. And you hear there's a sort of rumbling growl from
Feel
this
the
thing.
Emperor's light.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's fine.
You, in doing
I
so,
guess-
you're within feet of this guy as you run, and as you say that, you sort of his head sort of turns towards you as he hears the sort of your invocation to the Emperor.
Yeah, my finger's not moving. I'm literally just holding down the trigger and probably uttering a prayer to the Emperor under my breath.
Fair enough. So you're just spraying into it now.
Yeah, just continuing to spray until...
It's a big target. It's
Until
quite
the-
difficult to miss, especially as you're probably only
You say
Um,
that.
20
I'm
flamers are.
going to fortune point that. That was a 97.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Click,
that's
click,
better.
click.
A 23. So it's 7 degrees of success.
You're going to need some more dice again, aren't you?
Oh, well, yeah. Need to roll one more. 4, 4, 5, 8, 12, 12, and 14.
Was that another 10 to...
Yeah. And my last one, a 9.
Okay. You put a nice line of craters into its back, and this bit, you can see quite big sort of puffs of flesh and chunks sort of blast out as these go in, and this thing it does seem to sort of. You can see the flesh sort of quiver, and it does and there is this sort of rumbling growl, but it's a bit higher pitched, and you can see blood spurt out of these.
Okay, so I am doing something.
You are doing something to this thing.
It's starting to regret its decisions.
As soon as the magazine runs dry, with my very highly trained precision, release the existing one and rapid reload. You could say, sliding another magazine in.
Rapid reload. Free action to reload. Always remember to do it at the end of a round. Fair enough. This thing, sort of, it's quivering. You can see it have to put an effort in, but it sort of, there's a drag as it pulls itself up onto the thing, sort of onto its knees, and rears up. And this thing on its knees, sort of reared up, is huge, 14 foot high.
I don't like it.
It is this thing. It's sort of squat and simian, but it is on its feet, 15, 16 foot floor to sort of hump of the shoulders because its head obviously comes out the front.
Yeah, it's not upright. It's more.
And it sort of pulls itself up and sort of looks around and its arm starts to this arm sort of uncurls and starts to swing down towards the edge of the pit where Gaius
Does it have eyes?
and the three. It not that you can currently tell.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of not really looking.
Just got a face mouth, has it?
It's got this sort of. You can see this thing sort of
Teeth.
opened up
Lots of
with
teeth.
lots of teeth, and it lets out this sort of roar. This that echoes around the building, but yeah, you can't obviously see eyes from. I don't think none of you can obviously see eyes.
Kind of guessing it lives in the dark.
Yeah, I was going to throw a flashbang at his head, but that won't work.
Well,
We
the
also
bang
probably
would
wouldn't
still
appreciate.
So
I was going to shout
be
flash.
screaming at it about defiling the place, the place of the Emperor's worship.
Insulted it. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've still got 60
Make me
for
feel
ballistics, right? If I'm using the level
Well,
of
if you've
the...
got it, you probably have 40 unless you've still got your.
yeah, unless you can
Times like this,
you
I
can
wish
choose
I
to
had a
take
bayonet.
you can choose to take another test to try and get bonuses
Back it up.
again to retarget.
Oh, I see. Right, so I've got a test for targeting,
Yeah.
then test for...
It's one of them. It's the just firing the gun takes half of your. I mean, basically, it's half of your action. If you want to sort of try and spray with them, because these have got multiple shots, you just open up. You don't have the time. It doesn't. You just go to hell with targeting, suppressive fire. Effectively, just open up.
Well, it's a pretty big target. I'm guessing by this point I'm fairly close to
There's
it.
now so much of it there. You're getting bonuses just for its sheer size.
Okay, let's just go for a shot across its...
Just
across the
trigger
body.
it. Trigger.
A shot across the bow.
So you're going to trigger the... Which arm are you going to trigger? Left or right?
You've done the left one already. So
Yeah, but I'm worried that this thing with the countdown on it, this place is... There's lots of wood. And the floor is already falling apart. And what I don't want to do is cause a cave-in or something like that. So I think I'm going to have to go with the las again.
You can always just blame it on that.
And also, yeah, I guess I can also kind of glance across it as this beam is firing out, right?
Yeah, what idiot to fire full auto in here?
So what am I rolling against?
tech
So-
use first if you want to aim.
So yeah, are you going to do a single shot with the las weapon, or are you going to? It does have multiple shots. It is effectively a. You have
3 shots.
basically got a las.
Cannon.
No,
Las rifle.
Full auto las cannon.
you've got a las gun. Yeah, it's a standard las gun with a slightly shorter range. So it's only an 80-metre range rather than 100-metre range, which is
Only.
nothing when you're in the confines of a building.
Yeah.
But it does have a slightly higher damage rate.
Pew, pew,
So
pew.
it's doing.
It's a sawn off lascar.
So it's doing, instead of doing 1d10 plus 3, it's doing 1d10 plus 5.
Shoot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm not. So I can either aim and then fire
Aim
once,
and
or
do
I
a single
can
shot, or you can basically activate
Spray and pray.
spray and pray. At which point it's
May as well.
3 shots,
May as well. My last
shots, okay.
attempt was
Semi. single
Yeah.
or semi 3.
okay. So I roll against ballistics again.
Straight. It's against the ballistic skill, but
Okay.
because you're using semi-automatic, it's
Plus 10.
plus 10.
And I'm rolling against the ballistic
size of
skill
it.
of the thing that I'm
Yeah.
inhabiting, which is 40.
40
plus
plus 10,
And do I get my...
and
10.
plus 20 for the size of it.
So,
70.
70s.
17.
Okay.
Ooh,
20.
nice.
So 5
That's all
degrees.
three.
Yeah, all 3 hit.
All 3 shots. Basically you scorched it the first time, but now there's a nice big target to it.
Yeah.
You know where you're aiming.
What did you roll?
20.
20.
So it's in the
5 degrees.
face.
Yeah, you've literally just gone
Shot it in the mouth.
3 shots straight to, literally as the maw opens to roar, you put 3 shots straight down the mouth of it. Because
Lovely.
whenever you roll to hit, whatever you hit on, you
switch
reverse the number.
numbers, So your 20 becomes 02.
and that's in the head.
Oh, okay.
Now you can roll this as well, and that's all your dash.
Eat
roll
this
all the-
biological.
Oh, I see. From all my 3 hits.
Yeah, and then +5 to each of them, and that's your damage.
So,
Or just add 15.
so that's a 2.
So
Is
7.
it?
7. Yeah, that's a 2.
Oh, because it's +5. So
Yeah.
7, 9, and 14.
Fair enough.
Nice.
Nice. There's a slight gurgling sound. There's a definite gurgling sound, and there's this sort of the thing tries to roar again, and what you get is a sort of
Meow.
coughing. It's basically a sort of aspirating cough, and this brown stuff sort of expels from the mouth, along with a couple of sort of tiny little shards of teeth. And a lump of flesh just sort of flops onto the floor.
Is it its tongue?
No, this looks like you basically blasted a lump of its throat out.
Oh, nice. Lovely.
And it sort of tries to roar, and there's just this gurgling sound
No.
as this lump drops on the floor. And it sort of wobbles forward slightly.
Oh.
And this thing, it sort of, as it sort of looks around at you as this arm's gone out, and this sort of, it seems to lose a little bit of coordination.
Shoot it.
What are you going to do, Galva?
I've got a shotgun.
Can you look at it first?
Click,
and tell us
click.
what it is?
Boom.
I tried that already.
Oh, we'll look at it when it's dead. We'll look at its corpse.
Okay, so it's only a single shot.
Mhm.
But it is 2 shots, right? Because it has a clip of 2 and the reload is 2. Or does
So
it
you
not
can
count?
fire 2 shots before you have to reload it.
Oh, you've just got a
Oh, okay.
double-barreled shotgun.
Nice. They're always
Okay.
the coolest shotguns.
Okay, the trouble is I have to roll. Oh, but you said like what +30 or something.
Yeah,
so is that
it's a
still game?
huge thing.
Yeah,
Cool.
this thing is big.
I hit just about.
Nice.
Where did you hit it?
I hit it
I'm
in the 86. So I've shot it
Right in the
left
86.
leg.
So you basically you blasted
So
it.
it's gone. And I've just gone.
Blasted it in the hip, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got 1d10 +4.
I believe. 9 points of damage.
9. It's a good number.
You see, you sort of see there's a sort of bloody, sort of brown bloody puff as the pellets sort of burn into, sort of go into it, and this thing sort of slumps down slightly, and it sort of the other arm has to sort of come down to support it as it looks like you've severed something in the hip and it's sort of collapsed, or it's the hip's not moving properly and it's sort of having to hold itself up.
He's not having a good day. This
No.
monster.
Especially as it's now your go. Griff.
Ah!
It chose
It chose
poorly.
poorly. I take out a crack grenade and just
Relax is explosive.
and just pull the pin and throw it into its mouth. So I'm aimed core shotting.
Cold shot with a grenade.
I believe. I missed.
That's a 0. Oh, it's a 6. 60.
So I missed it. I got a 60.
What was the difficulty?
It's minus
40.
20 for cold shot.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so 49.
It occurs
so
to
I
me
only
that some of
just
us were on
missed.
different sides of this.
I'll
You're
use
just
the fake
like,
one. I'll reroll.
Are you going to reroll
Tink,
that?
tink.
I
Uh-oh.
believe in the Emperor.
Good call.
I believe in the Emperor. Ooh, Grey Skull. I rolled 65. Rolled
one,
worse.
1 point better?
Yeah. Rolled worse.
Yeah.
Have the pencil.
You put and you throw it towards it.
Bless you.
Thank you.
As it falls down.
But as it
sails over its head.
as it sort of falls, the hand sort of crunches into the ground, and it just causes the floor to shift
Further,
slightly. And your throw just sort of just puts you off the throw, and it bounces towards it and lands about. Well, let's see. You're aiming for. I'm guessing to land it at its feet.
He was
No,
aiming
in
to get it in
mouth.
his mouth.
Oh, into its mouth. Okay, right. Let's see which direction it goes then.
Blood Bowl dice.
You wobble and you've overclocked it, and it's just gently gone up and over its head.
Landed on Shepherd, whatever his face is lap.
No, it's landed. It's gone slightly over its head, and it's dropping. It's basically dropping down its back.
Ah, nice.
It hasn't gone off yet.
Fair.
What are you going to do?
That's an impact.
Have I reached the priest yet?
Crack.
Yeah, you're basically standing almost over him at this point.
Okay.
and you're sort of you've seen
crack grenades landed.
this thing sort of
My original thinking
it's
was...
fallen back. It's sort of fallen away from you because
Yeah.
it's sort of fallen towards the other side of the hole. So, but this arm has sort of swiped out as all these bullets and shotgun shells have gone into it, and it sort of tried to obviously swipe out at you, and it just completely misses. The arm passes 6 feet in front of your face, but there is this sort of taloned face, this huge paw with talons has just got sort of whipped past your face at about 6 foot away, and then it's sort of fallen away, and the arm sort of flailed up.
I kind of wanted to pick the guy up and also
Try and trigger the flamer.
Keep on holding the trigger down,
Yeah,
basically.
okay.
So I'm not even really...
Yeah, okay. You
I know
can
that
basically
holding
keep
it one-handed is not going to be working out well either.
No. It's at the -20 because you're now basically trying to haul someone from the floor
So as I do it, I want to be like...
and trying not to wobble around the thing spewing fire out at it.
Stand with me, brother. Fight against this evil that defiles the Emperor's name and his temple. It's defaning this place.
I don't like being in between him and the big monster.
I actually hit.
Hey.
Hey,
Sounds
yeah,
fun.
that's a 12. He definitely hit it.
Nice.
So, this is the fun
I mean,
bit.
there is no litany of burning people.
D10 plus 4.
Litany of burning light.
Yep.
Where is that when you need it?
About flamers.
Smiting. Smiling.
D10
Oh,
plus
smiting.
4.
Smiling.
Everybody smile.
Where do you think we are?
Oh, I forgot. Actually, sorry, it's a flamer.
Yeah.
You don't need to take a ballistic skill test.
Oh.
I need to make an agility test
Oh.
or take damage. Take the damage and then see if I catch on
I think
fire.
it was fair because I was trying to avoid hitting the floor.
Yeah, fair enough.
but-
You've definitely done it. I now need this thing needs to see if it doesn't if it can
Making an
dodge.
agility check with only 2 out of its 4
And it's a very large thing, so it's not gonna. The chances of this thing passing an agility check. Yep.
Suddenly starts doing the conga.
Yeah. No. This thing's flailing around as this
It's
cone of fire burns into it. It is not a happy thing.
And then it takes
So what damage does it?
7 pen free.
7 pen 3.
So it's an automatic 7.
No, I
right.
rolled 3.
Oh,
1d10 plus 4. Yeah, it washes over it, and you can see there's a blister. That's that smell
So
again.
it does flame, which I
And
don't know
the-
what it does.
it takes
Flame
an agility
means that I
test
need
or
to see if
carries
I-
on fire.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it washes over it, and it sort of there's this cooking smell, and you can smell this sort of.
Rancid.
There's this popping sound of it's almost like the smell of bacon.
To be fair,
fat.
it smells better than the whole.
It does smell better than the whole. There's a sound. It's almost like it's that dry popping smell of wet bacon fat drying out under extreme heat.
Lovely.
There is a great big screech, and
It's on fire.
the flame, the promethium, because it's very oily, just sticks to this thing's body, and this sort of runnels of flame just sort of wash over it and catch light as this thing starts to burn as this stuff sticks to it.
And we accidentally a Balrog.
Feel the Emperor's fury.
It's now on fire.
Excellent.
which means it does more damage to us.
It's now on
And it
fire,
hits you.
and this thing just sort of rears back, and there's this sort of gurgling screech, this sort of sound comes out of this, and it starts to sort of like teeter as it just starts to tip backwards. It starts to tip backwards and fall
Oh, the grenade goes
Onto
off.
the grenade.
as the grenade goes off.
Genius.
Because the timing, if you set all of your grenades to about the same,
Yeah.
you have time to do something before the grenade goes off. Rex,
How far from the grenade am I?
you are at this point. It's rolling
To
effectively
be
down
honest,
its
I don't know what
back.
kind of grenade it is, so I'm going to
No.
assume it's probably another fragmentation grenade.
It's reasonable to assume you're probably about 15 foot away from the edge of the hole. I think.
Okay, so
Behind it.
I'm far enough away from the
Yeah,
grenade.
you sort of moved behind it, didn't you, as it came out, and it was facing
yeah,
the doors.
it's one side of the hole, I'm the other one.
Yeah, so it's falling back towards you, and you can see this grenade falling down behind it.
Okay, yeah, in which case I'm not going to take it. I'm literally just going to leap backwards.
You're going to jump backwards.
Kind of combat rolling directly backwards.
Yeah, fair enough. As this thing falls backwards, it sort of drops backwards into the hole as there is a behind it. Can you roll me the damage for a crack grenade, sir?
Crack grenade.
Which is
2d10 plus 4.
2d10 plus 4.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is quite a good one. So it's 27.
27.
Oh.
What?
10, 6.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Was one of them a 10?
No, no, 27. Sorry, 17, not 27.
I was trying to work out who you...
Yeah.
24 would be the max.
17.
Yeah, 17. Basically, as this thing falls back, there is this... And it's a slightly wet... And this fountain of gore as the chest sort of blasts open. And the sort of, you see the ribs, this sort of semi-fused rib cage sort of distends outwards, and there is this just fountain of blood and bits of internal organ and viscera. Just explodes up and outwards as this thing topples backwards into the hole, and it just showers the entire area around for... Let's see how far. Ooh. It showers around for a nice, about 25 metres.
Yeah, it's pretty much
Around,
everyone.
So the room.
That's,
It
yeah, that's
it
pretty much
basically,
everyone.
it's the, most of the, yeah, it's a good depth of the room and quite a large stretch of the sort of outlying bit. Pretty much all of you get splattered in some way, shape or form with just falling bits of goo.
Are they also on fire?
Flaming bits of goo.
Damn it, Liam!
Flaming bits of goo.
There might be a few bits that are smouldering, but nothing's really going to set you on fire. If you want a nice analogy, for all of you who've seen Starship Troopers, the grenade into the bug. That's effectively what has just happened, but with something a little bit more
Squishy.
humanoid. So there's a bit more, and this thing it's definitely vaguely. There's a large chunk of lung goes flying. Let's put it that way. You are all sort of spattered in various bits of gore and viscera, as the body of this thing sort of just vanishes back, and as it drops back, you hear a sort of wet thump and a splatting sound from the hole as the remains of this thing just sort of drop into the hole. The priest, sort of, as you're supporting him, sort of he sort of seems to sort of come round with your support, and he sort of moves towards the edge and sort of goes to look down into it and just sort of spits over the edge and turns away and sort of turns back to you and goes, "It is indeed true, brother. The Emperor's brilliance burns all those who burns all of those and drops them back into the darkness they deserve. Thank you for your help. We should see to those outside. The shock to my flock may be greater, and they will need our help. Will you help me?"
Indeed.
I thank you. And he sort of looks around and he goes, "I thank you all. Your intervention here is timely. It is almost Emperor given to find such protectors of the Emperor's light here at our hour of need. I hope that we may come to know each other better, and that I may do something to help you in return for the help that you have given me and those I protect in his name." He turns and looks at the thing. "Is that you, Magos?"
Say beep boop. Just back up slowly.
Just trundle away.
Just binary blurt at him.
Does that compute?
404 error.
I'm here under the watchful gaze of the Magos.
Then I thank you. I thank you for your intervention. I know that we do not always see eye to eye, but in the darkness we both stand against the things from the depths. It is good to know that you do stand. Thank you. May the Emperor's light bless you if it is his will and the Omnissiah's to do so. And he starts coughing, and there's a slight sort of aspiration of, you see sort of a slight aspiration of blood come out, and as he sort of dabs away, he sort of dabs his sort of sleeve on it. And as you've sort of helped him up, you can see that there are definite tattoos down his arms, and they are definitely Imperial Guard issue tattoos. Can you two give me perception checks, please, Rex and Gaius?
It's my jam. 5. 3 degrees.
Fair enough. You get a good look at one of these tattoos, and give me a common law in war test, as I know you've got that one.
I do. Yes, 19.
19.
So that's 2 degrees.
You recognise the image, and it's quite a common one on soldiers that have fought in a particular campaign. It's one for soldiers who have fought on it's quite a common one for soldiers that have fought on the edge of the Calaxis sector, which is the nearby, which you are part of, effectively, or on the edge of.
Yeah.
And it would suggest that he has been in the military in some form, whether that was as a soldier or a military chaplain. But he has obviously been a soldier, and he has been involved in probably one of the biggest local sort of periods of warfare, which is still going on and has been rumbling on now for about 180 years. So it's starting to get into its stride by certain Imperial standards. They've settled in for the long war on this particular front. So he's definitely has been a fighting man.
The creature,
Mhm.
was it like? Well, can I have any? Like, can I have another go at
You can, if you want to have another go at identifying it, you can.
Yep. No. But it was alive,
It was alive.
and it wasn't like particularly.
It didn't seem to be. There was nothing on it that suggested mutation of something else. It looked like a creature. So it is probably some form of Xenos creature rather than a mutated human.
Cool. I'm gonna get my hunting knife and stick it in a lump and like give it a sniff.
There's a tang of. It's quite an irony, bloody smell. It's quite a deep brown colour, sort of, and it's the bits that drop off are viscous. It's quite thick.
Cool, I'm keeping this.
It smells of sort of iron, but there's a definite hint of that sewage smell that you can smell coming out from the hole. There's a sort of hint of it in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing obviously spent a lot of time around it for almost basically to become ingrained in it.
Can I take some samples in a sample bag?
If you've got sample bags with you,
I'm an Arbite.
you've probably got something.
Bags.
You got an evidence bag of some description.
Basically,
probably.
yeah, little plastic baggies.
Tip out the spice that was in it, and then you can fill up the stuff.
I'd like to say to the priest, allow my companion to tend to your wounds, and I will see to your congregation. Seeing that he's coughing blood,
yes.
kind of motion to Lex.
Do not worry. The injury. I am not injured. This is an old problem. one that I bear with the Emperor's grace. My flock is the greater charge now. Later I can see to myself when I have seen to them. Come, we need to give them hope again. Will you join me?
I did actually evaluate him medically. I don't have Medicaid trained, or even a basic, but I did roll an 11.
Oh, I thought you did.
Nope, I have no. When you said, yeah, Lex, go check him.
But you were so good with the cardinal.
Yes. Well, I can see red stuff coming out, and I know how to stop red stuff coming out. But I actually, looking at it particularly because I saw the blood coming out, that is... Was it half?
Half.
I passed by no degrees.
I really want you to give him a medical check.
I've got Medicaid.
You're a servitor at the moment, though.
Oh yeah, rubbish.
It's an the system's sort of gone into
Can I just
cool down, and the weapons have deactivated, and it is sort of it's almost on autopilot, turning around and trundling back.
Can I just attempt to persuade him? Just 10 seconds.
You can
just
attempt to
make
persuade
sure,
him
because he had a knockdown.
You can attempt.
I don't know.
And we can always shoot him in the kneecaps.
Subtle
I
stuff
have
bleeding.
pure ecclesiarchy.
Yep.
Can you do it with a las
Can I
weapon?
do it on that?
It burns.
Okay.
It burns them.
I passed by 3 degrees.
Here's opposing roll. This is exciting.
I passed the opposing by 3 degrees.
So who wins?
Well,
No one.
Recaps it.
I'm guessing he's probably quite set in his way of what he wants to do.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, to be honest, I probably would have placed a hand on him to steady him while I checked him.
He sort of he looks at you and he nods, and then goes, "Come, we should."
Did I see anything wrong with him?
On
my path.
Basically,
you
just
can
trying to get him
you can certainly see sort of a slight blood speckling his lip, and if you put your hand sort of on his shoulder on his back,
I saw that.
you can sort of as he moves away, you sort of feel him sort of breathe, and there's a definite sort of
Wheeze.
not so much a wheeze, but there's a sort of stiffness in the movement of his breathing. It's almost like
He might have some respiratory problem.
you think he's got some sort of respiratory problem. That means he can't breathe very well, which is quite impressive when you think that the singing and the voice that you've heard come out of him. But there's a little bit of a crackle in the voice now, as well. He's sounding tired. But he sort of draws himself up and he walks off towards the doors without any sort of limp. And as he sort of, I'm guessing you guys are going to follow him.
I am, but I'm putting the gun is basically going back into its hidden.
Sort of
Are
back
there
under.
any traders in this square, or was that in the other
I
one?
was
One or
further
two.
away.
There's a few little street traders, but there's not many, and the ones that are there, the one or two that you saw there did seem to be trading in technology stuff, which would make sense being outside the Mechanicus shrine.
Meh. I was looking for the barbecue guy.
No, he was back away, I'm afraid.
What? It's fresh.
But he sort of walks towards the door, and as he gets close to the door, you see him sort of draw himself up and sort of just steady himself. So sort of you can see him putting on this sort of cloak, this sort of persona of the calm, sort of unflapped, unworried, secure in his faith cleric, and he sort of steps out into the doorway, and sort of raises his hands up and basically goes Ave Imperator, and makes the sign of the Aquila above his head, and you just hear this echo back as voices start to sing. And as the voices swell outside and you walk towards the door, we'll fade to black and leave it there for tonight.
They're a bunch of keeners, aren't they?
They are indeed.
They are indeed.
So, I hope you all enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I hope everyone watching enjoyed seeing our acolytes come across something unexpected and not quite big and nasty, although they certainly put enough firepower into it to deal with it quite efficiently. I will say this, I'm very glad that none of you took a hit from the arm of that thing. It was quite nasty. But I hope you all enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was awesome,
Yeah.
thank you.
See you
And
next time.
yeah, just a quick reminder, obviously,
Check out the links below.
Check out all the links below. Check out all of the collection stuff, and
don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
in a few days, though, Pete will be returning with his Dungeons and Dragon D&D Planescape,
Dark Cage,
and of course there are the other games that are still running as well.
Star Trek
Morpheus,
Scion,
and Scion, and obviously the back catalogue of everything else that
Flint
Garblag
and Steel
has done. So, hope that you all enjoyed that, and that you all come back and join us again on the Edge of the Emperor's Light another time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.